Who are you talking to?
No one. Just making a little video of the trip.
You know you can't show it to anyone.
Yeah, I know.
Then why are you narrating in that voice?
Because it's fun.
Fine.
So, why'd they call you Happy?
All right, hello everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Yet Another Movie Podcast. I am Shane Wallach, and I'm with
Sean Higgins.
And today we're going to talk about
Spider-Man.
Yes, Spider-Man. So very topical right now, considering the new film out. So we thought, what better time than to talk about the film series, Raimi's film series. We'll talk about a little bit about the Mark Webb films, and of course, we'll talk about the new film. So that's kind of the agenda for today. Nothing super in-depth because we have a lot of films to talk about, so we're not going to do like what we did with Jaws, where we basically go through the whole movie. But we'll go through certain scenes and certain things we like and don't like. Anyway, to start off...
Yep. At least one of these films we will talk about in depth because I feel like we are both in a minority opinion on one film. We'll let you guess which one that is. But...
Yes. Yeah, on several films that probably the minority opinions.
I suppose.
But... So we'll bring all that up. But first of all, Sean, how did you get into Spider-Man when you were young?
When I was a kid, I watched the Spider-Man Fox cartoon show in the 90s and enjoyed that. I wasn't like a religious watcher of the show, but I do remember a few episodes. And the theme song, of course, that theme is actually pretty cool.
Spider-Man.
It's not as cool as the X-Men cartoon theme, though, I will say. But I digress. And then... I saw the Sam Raimi movies. I played Marvel Ultimate Alliance, so I liked, it was a character I was always drawn to when I was a kid, and I can get more into that later, why I was, when we talk about the movies. But I've always thought it was a cool character. It was my introduction to Marvel, and I am a fan of Marvel, or superhero films.
Yeah.
Not a fanboy. There is a disclaimer there. I can see bad Marvel films and call them bad. I mean, my God. But I do definitely love the character and appreciate the films to varying degrees. And some of them are some of my favorites, comic book films. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about these movies. What about you, Shane?
Yeah, so for me, I don't really remember the exact timeline. I know I watched the original Spider-Man film in theaters. Of course, wouldn't have missed that no matter how young I was. I also watched the cartoon, the same cartoon you talked about. Obviously, I've seen that probably every single episode religiously when I was a kid. I remember staying up super late to try and catch it on television every time they aired an episode, because sometimes they would air some really late at night. That was one of my go-to shows. And I always was really drawn to Spider-Man as the character. I really liked the mythos, the origin story. I liked the type of character he is, that he's a younger, hero who has normal problems, human problems. I like all that stuff. And I just always loved him as a character. That's why he kind of still stands to this day as my favorite superhero. Because unlike you, I'm not like a giant fan of superhero movies. I have a lot of problems with superhero movies. I find them to be a lot of times formulaic, surface level type films, but only certain films are able to punch through that, that sort of stereotype of superhero films, and I give them credit for that. But yeah, Spider-Man has always been one I really particularly liked, even though again, I'm not into that superhero stuff that much. I always loved Spider-Man, so it's kind of a different thing for me. So,
sure.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from. So, Sean, before we get into any of the films, why don't you talk about a little bit what you know about the origins of the character?
Sure. I know very little, but I did watch a nice featurette on the Spider-Man Blu-ray, the Raimi one, where Stan Lee basically talks about how in the 60s he first wrote the Fantastic Four. That was the first Marvel comic ever wrote. Basically, he was writing for a newspaper company. I forget what company it was. But anyway, he almost wasn't going to continue writing, and then he was given inspiration to continue writing his own work, and if that didn't go off well, he was going to stop. So he wrote the Fantastic Four, and that went off really well. And then down the line a little bit in the 60s, probably the early 60s, considering that original Spider-Man cartoon show, which we haven't talked about, but Stan Lee came up with this idea of a character that could crawl up walls, and what would that character be? And he basically was inspired by the idea of having it be a bug or insect hybrid human character.
Yeah.
And so he went down the list, and he came up with the idea of making it Spider-Man. And he thought that'd be really cool to have a character that could shoot webs and climb walls and stuff. And how great it would be to make him a human, like a teenager, a believable, like, everyday kid.
And not just that, a geek.
Yeah, a geek,
Not an athletic guy.
Right, a very relatable kid to most people who would be reading comic books, most kids, and be kind of an inspiration, which I think I will definitely say he succeeded very well in doing that. And that's kind of where the idea came from. And obviously, like I mentioned, they had that cartoon series in the 60s with the famous theme of Spider-Man, that theme.
And then they had the live-action series.
They had the live-action 70s series, which I have actually seen a couple
episodes,
TV episodes, and they are quite fascinatingly bad.
Then there's the film.
It's no Incredible Hulk.
The television film.
Yeah, that was...
I have not seen.
I've seen that.
Well, how is that?
It was awful. It's no Incredible Hulk or Wonder Woman. I've seen both of those, like, pilot episodes for those shows, and those are at least, like, pretty good for the time.
Yeah.
This was not. They weren't ready for this. The effects are awful. It's obviously a guy with a camera and a rope swinging, and it's like so corny, but it's hilariously bad. But yeah, there is that. And then of course years later with the 90s and stuff, I don't have all the comic history. I'm sure there's people yelling at their podcast right now, but you know what, sorry.
Well, he has an interesting history, and he always really has been the face of Marvel Comics. He's still the most popular superhero character.
He's like Batman is to DC.
Yeah, really he is. Or Superman, I guess.
Or Superman. That one's a little interchangeable, honestly.
Yeah, they're both extremely popular. I'd say Batman now, after the films, is probably the most popular.
That's probably true. I think initially it was
for the
Superman.
comics, it was Superman to begin with. But yeah, for Spider-Man, it's kind of always been Spider-Man. And the only other one that really gets close is the X-Men, but of course there's no titular X-Men, right? Now it's like Wolverine.
Everyone brings up Wolverine because of the films, but before, it was the X-Men.
They're a team. Yeah. You know, so
or
that's,
Fantastic Four was a team.
Yeah, so just for a singular character, it was always like Spider-Man was like the number one. Which made it reasonable that they chose to make a Spider-Man movie when they did, because the X-Men films were going. They had started off.
So to give you a very quick, brief history of where comic book movies were in the early 2000s.
Sure.
The 90s more or less killed the idea of comic book movies for a brief period of time with Batman and Robin.
Well, DC sputtered, and spun out
really hard with Joel Schumacher.
Both the Superman series
in the 80s
going downhill. What is that? Peaking with Supergirl, which is just an awful film. And then, of course, the Batman series getting
you had
Joel
Movies
Schumacher.
Like Steel with Shaquille O'Neal
as
a Superman ripoff, which I have seen.
And then what?
In 98, you had Blade. Everyone forgets about Blade, so I want to mention Blade. That is a Marvel character. But even though it was kind of more in a Matrix style, like trench coat wearing, killing vampires, but still. And then in 2000, you had X-Men, where they were like, okay, let's try and do another character. Let's see if we can do X-Men.
And then, this is before like the idea of comic book movies being surefire hits.
This
like
is
they are today.
Way before. This and Spider-Man and arguably Blade are the reason we have this glut of superhero movies today.
Yeah, that they're as popular as they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So X-Men, that did really well at the box office. Fans seemed to love it, so they were like, okay, let's do another character. Let's do our big Marvel character, Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I can jump in here because I do know a little bit of the behind the scenes. So yeah, Spider-Man, the film was been planned forever. They always wanted to do a theatrical Spider-Man movie, especially after the success of Tim Burton's Batman. They knew that this had box office potential. They just couldn't find a script or a way they wanted to do it. Now, the notable script that was hanging around Hollywood was James Cameron's treatment of Spider-Man.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so he did like a little scriptment of Spider-Man. It wasn't a fully fledged thing, and it was with a lot of different writers. He was just the only one credited. Then Sony optioned his scriptment from MGM, and they wanted to develop a movie, but they didn't like his script. So they kind of threw it out. And then they hired David Koepp to just completely rewrite the whole thing and do it a completely different way. As this was going on, they were trying to find a director. So there were a lot of people lined up for this movie. The first people they thought of, Roland Emmerich came to mind. He was particularly popular in the day.
I could see it at the time, but that terrifies me imagining
A lot
that.
of these terrify me.
Okay.
To be honest. I'm glad that some of these didn't happen. The other one, Ang Lee, as we know now, that would have been a particularly bad decision.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah. No offense to Ang Lee, but boy.
But come on, his Hulk is... it's not trash, but it's something else.
Yeah, there's some others here. Chris Columbus, oh God. He went on to do the
that
Harry
at
Potter.
least makes sense with Home Alone and Harry Potter. Like Spider-Man.
Well, this is
kind of
during the Harry Potter.
Right.
So
that's true. This came out...
Wouldn't
yeah, you're right. They wouldn't have
done it yet.
You're right.
But, yeah, I don't like Chris Columbus. He's just one of those Spielberg knockoffs. No thanks. Jan de Bont, which would have been funny if he did it. And then some of the more interesting ones, M. Night Shyamalan.
At the time, that makes sense.
Yeah,
at the time. Remember.
But again, very glad he didn't touch.
Hey, he made Signs instead, so I'm not going to complain.
Signs is not.
I'm on that side of that debate, but that'll be another podcast. That'll be a different podcast. Keep going.
Shyamalan, and then Tony Scott, which actually would have been interesting.
Oh, I can. All right.
A Tony Scott Spider-Man movie. Yeah, that would have been a completely different animal for sure. And then finally, David Fincher, who was one of the bigger finalists. He actually didn't want to do an origin story though. He wanted to do the Death of Gwen Stacy storyline, and he didn't want to do the spider bite, anything like that.
Oh.
Sony didn't want that. Too dark.
I wouldn't mind seeing that version, but I feel like if you're going to introduce Spider-Man to the masses, that's not the story you go with.
Yeah, Spider-Man.
So
Sony did not want something that dark. So Fincher was out, and then they hired Sam Raimi, who at the time was most well known for his little low-budget horror series, Evil Dead. Now this,
I'm a bit of a fan of that series.
So you wouldn't just obviously think, oh, Evil Dead director for Spider-Man.
No.
But, he was a budding independent filmmaker who proved that he was talented, and I think Sony saw that, and he had a vision for Spider-Man. And that's what they were looking for.
Well,
somebody
to be fair to a couple things on that, he did direct a movie called Darkman with Liam Neeson, which is
he did do Darkman.
I don't know if it's based on a specific comic book or what that's based on specifically.
I don't know, actually. Yeah.
But I did watch it recently. It's actually pretty good. But that has some similarities, at least in filmmaking style, to Spider-Man. And the absurd way of showing a comic book movie, but as a movie, still in comic book kind of form. Without going too silly where it's like Creep Show or something. You see comic book panels or something like that.
Yeah.
And Evil Dead has that too, so I actually see where they're coming from. And like you said, he's a huge Spider-Man fan. He was a kid that grew up with a giant Spider-Man poster plastered on his wall.
Yeah, he loved Spider-Man. So, hiring a fan of the character to do the work is not a bad idea. Sometimes they can do a lot of justice to the character.
Sometimes it doesn't work out, but fortunately in this case, I would argue it definitely did.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's go back to the script here, because the original David Koepp script, I read it. Actually.
Oh, you did?
Well, not the whole thing. I read parts of it.
Okay.
And the interesting thing, it's a lot different. There's Dr. Octopus is in the movie.
Yeah, I remember that being a thing. They wanted Dr. Octopus in it originally, and Sam Raimi said no.
And him and Norman are working together in the lab, and that's kind of like the character who's in the lab instead.
Was it just supposed to be Norman, or was it Green Goblin eventually?
Green Goblin was in the first one, but yeah, Norman was working with.
Okay. So it was going to be two villains.
Yeah,
in one movie.
Villains in one movie. Yeah. And they also had the Black Cat.
So three.
Yes, so 3 villains. That was also thrown around a lot. But then they modified it. They hired Scott Rosenberg to do a rewrite of the whole thing. Scott Rosenberg being best known for Con Air. He wrote it. Yeah. Well, sometimes a bad screenwriter can turn out something okay. Con Air is kind of not a good movie, but
It's a fun bad movie,
Yeah.
but yes, it's not a good movie.
yeah, absolutely. But then they also hired Alvin Sargent to do dialogue rewrites. This was Laura Ziskin's request. Laura Ziskin and him are known for coming up with a story for What About Bob, a movie I love. Alvin Sargent also won 2 Oscars, actually, for screenwriting. One was for Julia. I can't remember the other one. And he is also well known for helping to write all the subsequent Spider-Man movies up to Amazing Spider-Man. He wrote all those, so he's he's pretty well known for that. But
that kind of explains
obviously an accomplished
a
screenwriter.
few things about the script.
Yeah, he wanted to fix the dialogue because I will tell you, in the David Koepp version, the dialogue is terrible.
It's way worse than it is.
Horrible.
Okay.
I was like literally laughing out loud reading the script. That's how bad it was, because I know why they did that.
I mean, there are a couple lines in the finished film that
yeah.
are kind of like, oh god.
It made it through the screening process, but most of that stuff, especially they toned down the tiger stuff.
Go get him, Tiger.
It's obvious they wrote the Mary Jane, and David Koepp wrote his Mary Jane thinking about like the comic book Mary Jane, because Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane is not the comic book Mary Jane.
Yeah, I can
which
see a
is
problem
one of
with
the
that.
best decisions I'm glad that they made, because the comic book Mary Jane is not a great character. I'm just gonna go out there and say that right now. I know a lot of comic book fans are gonna raise their pitchforks at me, but she is just such a weird character. She's like that sly, like, you know, oh yeah, Tiger. You know, that sort of.
It's a little too much.
I think
for
it
the
was
film. Yeah.
designed to be like this sort of object for geeky men. Like, look, you can get the hot girl, and she's going to be really hot, and that's going to be your character.
Yeah.
You know, instead of having a fully fleshed out like human.
Well, it's arguable in the first Spider-Man movie, at least, she doesn't do a lot.
We'll
she
get
ends
into
up
all
being
that. We'll
saved
get
a
into all
lot.
that.
But anyway.
Yeah, so that's kind of where that came from. Funny thing, one of the things that was retained were the organic web shooters. Those started in Cameron's version. So if you want to blame someone, don't blame Sam Raimi, don't blame even David Koepp, blame James Cameron.
I'm going to say something right now that is going to be very controversial to Spider-Man fans. I like the organic web shooters, don't get me wrong, but I think it makes more sense for them to be natural web shooters. Because
You just said you like the organic.
I like them. I like the idea. I think it's cool. But it works better for them to be natural web shooters.
You just confused me, because you said you liked the organic ones.
I said it like I don't hate them, is what I'm trying to iterate.
But
I
you
don't
just
have
said that they're better.
I said the natural ones, like the Tobey Maguire version, the Sam Raimi version.
The Sam
is
Raimi
better.
version has organic web shooters. Not the,
I'm
not
sorry.
The web,
His stupid.
not the
Yeah,
artificial
sorry.
web shooters.
Okay.
Organic.
Yeah. Because what I meant to say is the organic web shooters are better than the.
I like
he
the
made
organic
them up.
web shooters too, because when they basically, how you have to just assume that Peter Parker is this super genius engineer,
Right.
who's also a high schooler, who designs this like nearly impossible technology to, you know, stick to buildings and webs, and it's like,
And think about it this way too. Okay, so he has all these abilities of a spider, like being able to climb up walls and being able to like see stuff in slow mo or whatever. Mm-hmm. Why the hell would he not have the power to shoot webs out of his arms?
yeah, I always liked the organic web shooters.
Yeah.
I never understood people's problem with it. You know, if they want to do, you know, the actual artificial ones, that's fine. You know, that's more true to the comics, so fair enough. I just thought it was a fine change to make it organic.
It makes
so
sense.
I don't blame James Cameron. I think it's a good idea, and I think that I'm glad that it retained into the final film, because I think it works.
Yeah, organic web shooters are better.
So
anyway.
yeah, let's we'll just table it there. If you disagree, that's fine. I understand. Hey, the new one, they have the machine ones.
Yeah,
so
don't worry. They have the machine ones.
Yeah.
Which I don't have a problem with the idea. I'm just saying one makes more sense. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, so then we'll get into the first movie.
All right.
We're here. So the first movie, let's talk about all the different elements. How about let's start there? So first of all, let's start off with the cast. Because that's a pretty big decision. You know, like who they chose. So first of all, let's talk about Tobey Maguire. Sean, what do you think about Tobey?
As Peter Parker, he works really well. He plays nerdy high schooler well, even though I think at the time, wasn't he like 26 while filming, or 25, something like that?
Yeah.
But he plays nerdy high schooler well, and then later on when he becomes, after high school, he plays the nerdy, like, socially awkward person well. Spider-Man is it's a good Spider-Man. It's a very good Spider-Man. I love the costume and everything. It's probably my favorite costume, honestly, look of the character. But it loses a bit on the witty banter side of Spider-Man, the sarcastic, he's like a G-rated Deadpool. Best way to say it, the inverse, I guess, of Deadpool.
Yeah, in the comics.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's throwing out jokes all the time at villains, and I guess he says a couple lines like, you're the one who's out, Gobby, out of your mind, or a few other things. But he doesn't do it a lot. Now, there are aspects I like. I like the montage of him just stopping bank robbers. It's very quaint and reminds me of the original Superman film.
Well, let's keep talking about Tobey
Okay,
here.
sure. Okay, sorry. But yeah, I like Tobey Maguire as an actor in this film. I think he does the role well. Yeah.
I think Tobey was perfect casting for Peter Parker. He embodies the character. The nerdy, geeky
exactly.
Peter Parker. That's what Peter's supposed to be. He's supposed to be a total dweeb. Total dweeb. The last person you suspect being a superhero. And that's what's so important, because he gets these powers, like the dream of many, geeks and nerds out there would be, swinging around the city and fighting crime as this geeky, nerdy kid, which is really cool,
Getting this ability and then suddenly being able to get the hot girl you're,
Yeah, and he's just
pining after.
He's just fantastic. He just does such a great job in all this Peter Parker stuff. Like you said, the Spider-Man stuff. Yeah, it's a different Spider-Man than you see in the comics. I don't mind it, though. I think that it makes the films just a little bit more serious when it comes to Spider-Man itself. Sure. He's not trying to crack a joke every 10 seconds.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't want this to be, a yucks fest or something like that.
Yeah, but I guess what it does more than anything, it makes him feel like a real person, I feel like this Spider-Man and this Peter Parker, they feel like a real person. Like they're actually, play things realistically, which I like. And that's why I like Tobey in this series, because I think he does that really well. He feels authentic, I feel like I know Peter Parker as a person after watching these movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we both really like Tobey.
I definitely, this is something I alluded to earlier. Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, he's supposed to be the, like you said, the relatable hero. Mm-hmm. And he is very relatable. And I definitely, there's definitely a lot of relatable aspects about how he's a nerd. He's kind of the socially awkward nerd who can't get the girl, whatever. But then, it's a fantasy, like you said, and I think it's done very well. I definitely agree with that. Now, why don't we move on to some of the other casts, I guess? Yeah,
well, I just want to say, because, Tobey's kind of known for this part, which is interesting. I think he's actually a pretty good actor, though. I love The Cider House Rules. It's a great film, and he's really good in it. Seabiscuit, I think, is a great movie. And I just saw him a couple years ago in Pawn Sacrifice, and he did a really fantastic job. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of too bad that, he's such a talented guy, and he's only known for Spider-Man, even though I think he's fantastic as Spider-Man. He's just one of those actors that's always going to be known.
He's great at the drama bits, like when his uncle gets shot. He's great at that.
Oh, yeah, and you would agree the other films you've seen with Tobey,
I'll admit, I can't think of a lot. I haven't really
all the ones
seen
a
lot. I've seen not Seabiscuit. I haven't seen Pleasantville.
He's also in The Great Gatsby.
I haven't seen Great Gatsby. I haven't seen those. I know.
All right. Huh.
Maybe I should. Now, however, the Kirsten Dunst and James Frank. Kirsten Dunst.
Kirsten, yeah.
Wow. Kirsten Dunst.
Kristen Stewart. Kirsten Dunst.
Okay. Kirsten Dunst.
Nope.
Kirsten Dunst.
There you go.
Oh, wow. Thank God this is not really a scene podcast. So please will never see this.
We can pronounce things properly here.
We promise. She is an actress I'm familiar with from Jumanji. Mm-hmm. Growing up watching that wonderful movie. I guess we'll have to do that later this year with a crappy remake coming out.
We don't know if it's bad yet.
You're right, we don't. But that trailer looks so awful. Sorry. But yeah, I like her in the role of Mary Jane. I think she works for the part. More so, she has more to do in the next two, so I guess we can talk more about her acting later. But I think in this first one, it's a good setup for her character, absolutely. And she does have some good acting moments, especially at the end with
she's the
that
weakest in this movie, but I'll agree. I think she's really good casting. She plays the part really well. I disagree with all these people that say that she's terrible in
No,
this movie.
she's not terrible.
She's really good, and I think that she feels like a real person. And her interactions with Peter in the first movie are the most base level, are the most simplistic.
Sure, that's true, and she does have some awkward lines.
Yeah, and she's the damsel, in this movie, straight up. That's basically what she is. She's the girl, the hot girl that Peter wants to be with, who turns into the damsel in distress. He gets to save her.
I mean, if I'm going to compare it to, and I think the most apt comparison is to Superman the movie.
Yeah, Lois Lane.
She's Lois Lane. She isn't as strong of a character as Lois Lane, at least in this first Spider-Man movie, because Lois Lane, at least, she's naive at times, but she'll go out on a limb to try to get the scoop of some news report thing, and she's brave, at least in a sense.
Yeah, but she's a great, I think in here she's a good enough character, and sure, she's more of a plot device in the first movie, but later on she gets better. So we'll
table it for
we'll
later,
talk about it
but
then.
yeah.
But
and now,
moving on, let's talk about Uncle Ben.
Uncle Ben.
Yeah, Cliff Robertson. You want to talk about him?
Sure. We only see him for a little bit, but he is one of the most... His character in this film is very standout and memorable, as, of course, the one who lectures Peter when Peter is first developing his powers and hasn't decided to start fighting crime or anything and is using it for his own gain. He's the one who kind of brings him down to earth and says, with great power comes great responsibility.
Well, yeah, we know what the character... I'm just talking about the acting.
Yes. No, I know. I think his acting is very good, though. I think it really carries across in only a few scenes this very fatherly, loving relationship. He cares about his nephew that he is told to be watch over. And so does... I
want to...
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought you were going to bring it up, but I will. He's a fantastic actor. In Charlie, he was just tremendous. And Cliff Robertson has so much talent. And, just the warmth that he brings to his roles. That's what's so important. Like, Charlie was a heart-melting movie just by, his performance alone just carried that film. So here, it was really great casting to get somebody this, kind of warm and somebody you feel like you always knew, even though he's only on screen for like 10 minutes, which is really important, because you need to feel that relationship between Peter and Uncle Ben. So it's one of those roles where the writing is sort of okay, but it's really the actor that takes it over. Because the exchange that Peter has with Uncle Ben, where don't start with me and don't start without me, that kind of thing.
That feels like a real bonding, like a real relationship there.
That.
And we get, and it's good screenwriting too, but it's also good acting. And you need good actors to, like you said, to convey that good screenwriting.
And of course, the great power, great responsibility scene, which, he just did fantastic. He was great in that scene. And that's the whole message, that Peter has to live by for the next few movies. That is that scene. That's a really important scene. And it's just two characters talking. That's what I love about this movie. There are scenes where you just have two people sitting down and talking in a superhero movie.
And I mean, we can briefly mention it later, but they try to duplicate that scene in the Mark Webb movies, and it doesn't have that same punch of just two people just sitting in a room and having a conversation.
And there's a lot of emotion, and you really feel their connection as characters.
It's not something grandiose. It's not like Peter Parker did something horrible and now he's getting a lecture like it is in the Mark Webb movies. It's just, he's just talking to him and saying this.
He's basically talking about
giving him life advice.
You're a man now, and here's what you got to know.
You're about to graduate school. Decide who you're going to be as an adult now.
This is the place in life where you have to figure out who the person you're going to be for the rest of your life is. And that's a really important lesson,
Yeah.
And the big part is that Peter thinks he blew him off. And then he tragically gets killed. So that Peter has to live with that guilt.
And that's a big part of the Spider-Man character in the comics, is that there are two things that are motivating Peter to do what he does. And that is guilt and responsibility. More important, responsibility, but I think guilt is in there too.
Yeah.
And both of them are conveyed just through this scene and through the scene later when Ben is shot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very well.
No, I agree. Yeah, you're 100% on point there. As for the other cast, Willem Dafoe as our villain.
I love that they got Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, he's a very talented guy.
Yeah.
And if you're going to have this over-the-top, ridiculous performance, he's the guy to get, because he can pull it off. You know, just this
You know what?
comic book villain.
He works really well in this movie. I mean...
Yeah, there are moments where it goes too far. And everybody says this, and I think that's one of the weak points of the movie, is that, yeah, he's a little bit silly.
I mean,
sometimes.
yeah, his costume, everyone said it, but I'm going to say it too, it looks like a Power Rangers villain.
Yeah.
And yeah, he does go a little too far with some of his jokes, I guess, and quips. It's a little too cheesy.
He's just a really over-the-top villain.
He is.
Which, you know,
but
is fine.
it fits for the universe.
Yeah, it's
for
just
the Raimi Spider-Man universe.
It just takes you out a little bit at times, but it's okay. You know, and he's a great actor, very talented, and I think he pulls it off better than anyone else could. So definitely give him that. And then I really do want to talk about Rosemary Harris as Aunt May. I have gushed about her over and over, and I'll do it again. In this movie, again, she's probably like the weakest of the movies, just because some of the dialogue is a little iffy. But her performance is just fantastic. She is the Aunt May I think of. When I think of Aunt May, I think of Rosemary Harris.
Yeah.
That's Aunt May.
I don't think of Marissa Tomei or Sally Fields. No, I think
I
of...
like Sally.
Yeah.
But
I like Sally Fields too.
She's
not my Aunt May, though.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. She is perfect casting. You know, she just carries across just that... Aunt May's character is supposed to be like Spider-Man's emotional core, right? The person who's the mentor to Peter.
Yeah.
Or for anyone else. She is the mentor. She's the one who gives him advice in life and helps him, you know, overcome all of his problems.
She's the one who's in the second one is basically the reason he continues being a hero.
We will get there, yeah.
Well, it fit here.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah, no, I'm saying I will definitely bring that up.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. But
she's so great, and I'll talk about it again when we get to Spider-Man 2, but I just want to bring that up. She's great. So the cast, I think we'd agree, is a very, very accomplished cast. All very fit their roles. Also, James Franco as Harry.
Yeah, surprisingly really worked. Now, this was obviously, as being a kid at the time, my introduction to James Franco, but if you watch this in, like, his career, like, was used to him with Seth Rogen, you wouldn't necessarily think that, but he really fits. James Franco's actually, like, just as a person, from whatever, is a very intelligent person, and he's a very good dramatic actor at times. He just chooses these more stoner comedy roles, but, you know, I think it'd be unfair to label him as that actor.
I really like him here, and he's definitely a talented guy, and I think he really does the character of Harry very well. That's why I think that no franchise ever is going to, you know, be able to approach Harry again the same way, because Harry's been done this way. He's been done really well. They tried
it with Amazing Spider-Man 2, and it's not nearly even as close.
It didn't work.
Because, here's the thing, and again is where I'm going to briefly mention the sequels. We see an arc with his character, but we feel for him. Like, here, in just this movie, he thinks Spider-Man killed his dad at the end. And we feel for him. Even though we, obviously, as the audience know, that's not true, we're like... Yeah, we're heartbroken because...
You always like Harry.
Yeah.
Harry's kind of a jerk.
He can be a jerk at
with
times.
Mary Jane and you know, him being with Mary Jane, you know, that whole plot, you know. Yeah, you can get a little bit of that. And, of course, the scene with... when he's arguing with his father, but...
Yeah, they never take that too far, though. I mean, even he has a line like, well, Peter, you never made a move. You know, and I liked Mary Jane also, so I made a move. And it's like... And Peter even acknowledges, it's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, but I think he plays that real middle ground really well, which is important, because we still have to like Harry. It's very important.
Exactly.
So yeah, and then as for everything else, we could talk about Sam Raimi's direction, because I think it's great, because he brings in that Evil Dead, slightly comedic, slightly horror vibe to Spider-Man, and it works really well, especially some scenes, like... For the horror background he has, the scene in the building and by the docks when he's confronting Uncle Ben's killer.
It's great use of shadow in that scene, isn't it?
Dark.
Like you see, you know, Peter crawling along one of the
Yeah,
I want to say
background.
Pipes, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and you see a shadow too.
Yeah. And it works very well, and it's creepy looking, and you feel this Robert's like tense fear, like what's going on, who's there, kind of thing. And then later with, you know, when it's just Norman Osborn out of the costume, just the expressions he's giving, and when he talks to himself in the mirror, does like the schizophrenia, like
Yeah.
he's talking to himself. It's so creepy, and if people call it the Gollum thing, here's the thing: this came out the same year as Two Towers. There's no way they knew anything about that.
Yeah,
So
it's
come
definitely
on,
copy it.
they didn't mean to copy it. It was a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, yeah, I think Raimi really brought an energy to this film, and the way he combines the comedy and the drama really well. You know, he intermixes the comedy. This is not like a comedic film,
Yeah.
but it's funny, and you have some great comedic moments.
Yeah. Also, just the use of camera angles, like obviously he had a cinematographer, but a director works tightly with cinematographers usually when they're a good director, and
Yeah.
And he did. Like, this definitely had at times an Evil Dead 2 feel, maybe in a few shots, where you could tell some of the lessons he learned in those movies were brought here with finding inventive ways to use a camera. Nothing quite as comical as those, but you know what I mean, I think.
Yeah, I think that, that Raimi, because he loved the characters so much, and he knew that this was going to be a really technically difficult movie to make, he had to modify his style of filmmaking, because he was such a practical effects guy. And then his visual effects director came up to him and he's like, dude, you got to do the Spider-Man action stuff. You have to do that in computers. There's just no way that it's going to look convincing if we do it practically. So he had to relearn basically how to make a film with CGI. And the really cool thing about the CGI in these movies is it doesn't look like you're looking at a fake thing. Sure, there's a shot here or there that doesn't look convincing.
No,
but for the most part, when Peter Parker is swinging around the city, that looks real. And the really important thing, and this is why it looks convincing, is Sam Raimi made sure in every single shot in the movie, there's something real there.
Yeah.
He said that we're not going to make an animated film. We're making a film with real elements, and then we'll put in the CGI where we have to. So, like, for the Spider-Man swinging around the city stuff, they literally strung up a camera and swung it around the city. And that's how they came up with those shots.
That's cool.
The interesting thing is they don't do that anymore. It's all CGI now. Which is one of the reasons I think some of these comic movies have lost a little bit of that magic is because there's nothing wrong with CGI. But when you combine it with the real elements, it makes for a very convincing shot.
Yeah, and there's a certain magic, honestly, almost to this movie and the visual effects. I think it holds up well too, and I agree there are a couple shots, sure, whatever, you can nitpick this movie, but it's not that bad, especially for the time. When you look at other movies, even movies that have pretty good CGI but have a more obvious fake, like Harry Potter, I mean, there's certain moments in those movies, as much as I love them, that look fake today. This one doesn't.
Yeah, Raimi did a great job combining the practical effects with the real stuff, and it looks fantastic. Yeah, as for everything else, is there any particular scenes you want to talk about that stand out to you?
Particular scenes. Good question.
We already brought up the great power.
Right,
scene,
we brought that up.
I always thought you would like the. I don't know. This seems like something you would like, the wrestling scene.
It is quite humorous. Yes,
yeah.
I like
Randy
how well
Savage.
Randy Savage. Yeah, that is funny. But I like how well paced this movie is overall. Like, we get to Toby in the suit within the first hour, and something I can bring up later when we mention the Mark Webb movies. It takes about 50 minutes to get to Uncle Ben's death.
Well, I really like how it starts, because the movie starts with, "Who am I? Are you sure you want to know?" And then he's like, "This is a weird story, and I'll take you through it." And I think that narration really works to start off the movie.
Yeah, and I like how, well, let's mention this. Danny Elfman. His score starts this movie off
definitely get there.
with a wonderful, like, just the opening credits. It's very, I love just the opening credits. It's all in spider webs and this theme that's just a build up. It reminds me a lot. This whole movie, I'll just throw this out there. This is a lot like Superman the movie in structure. With starting of a, much like Superman, a landscape of these credits going through and this music that just builds and builds and builds, and you just feel like you're entering this world of this superhero.
Same with Danny Elfman's
his Batman. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, it also feels that way with the build. But I prefer the Spider-Man theme. Now, this could just be my bias, but every time I turn on one of those movies, my eyes are glued to the credits just because the music is fantastic. The credit design is great.
Much like Superman, also when I watch, like, say, Man of Steel, whenever the hell I would watch that again, or Batman v Superman, again, why would I watch that again? But if I did,
Yeah.
it feels weird not hearing the Superman theme. Watching the Amazing Spider-Man movies, they have good qualities, but it feels weird not hearing that Spider-Man theme.
Yeah.
I think it perfectly is married to the character, and it works very well.
Yeah, it's a fantastic theme, and I really love what Danny Elfman did.
Yeah.
With the film.
And, then it starts off, like you said, him at high school and stuff, and we get the brief history. We quickly are getting into the character. There's not a wasted moment, and I really appreciate that.
It establishes Peter. We get a feeling of who Peter is.
Yeah.
And he has friends. We know he had a crush on Mary Jane. This is all established in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Friends with Harry. Then we get
For
Aunt May,
visuals,
Uncle Ben.
not lines. We don't need a line like, "You really like Mary Jane Parker, don't you?" Or Mary Jane Watson. That'd be weird. Mary Jane Watson, don't you?
And she's the girl next door. We get that.
Yep.
And the other thing is, they don't talk about his parents. We don't really need to hear about it.
No.
It's not part of the story.
It's not, that's never been a problem for me. I mean, sure, there's always that interest in the back of your head, like, what did happen to his parents, but
Yeah,
I don't need
it. It is explored in the comics, but yeah, it's just unnecessary filler, which is why when it talks about it in the Amazing Spider-Man films, it's like, well, is this really necessary? Do we need to hear all this stuff about his parents?
Well, we can talk more about that later, but yeah, I agree. It goes a little, it's like, don't need to start the movie off like that if you're they barely even talk about it in the first Amazing Spider-Man, but they start the movie off with his parents,
they
which
start
is
the movie
odd.
off with his parents, yes. And they start both movies with his parents, which is really weird to me.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that in this the way they start this movie is great. And then because we know what type of character he is, when he turns into Spider-Man, we see the change, and we see, we can actually experience that with him. We experience how cool it is when he first, figures out how to shoot his web and swing across a gap.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's climbing up the wall, that fantastic scene when he's scaling the wall for the first time, you hear the bum, bum, dun, 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 and he's figuring out his powers. That's so cool, to me, because not many other superhero movies do that, where it's like, oh, I have powers now. Let's have this cool sequence where we figure out what those powers do. Usually they always had those powers, or they come up with the powers on their own.
Yeah.
And that's just the thing. And then when they do acquire powers, usually it's just like, oh, I'm really strong now. Okay. Spider-Man has a really cool set of powers that are really unique.
Yeah, and I love that we actually get to see the hero figure this out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. And he's not like overpowered like Superman is, but his powers are dynamic enough where we understand that he's formidable. He's strong now, And I like that. And I like that it's based on a spider, because spiders are really cool, So it's kind of a cool insect or type of animal, I guess you could say, to use.
I love that Stan Lee, two of the things he thought of, the first thing he thought of was Fly Man, and then Mosquito Man.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell would Mosquito Man have been? Thank God you didn't do that.
Didn't happen.
He did do Ant-Man eventually, I guess. So there is that.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Anyway, I love this movie. I think it's one of my favorite comic book movies, honestly, because it's so well structured and it's just a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
It's a lot of, and there's good mix of drama and action. It's not just
we
only
didn't talk
action.
About him. J.K. Simmons.
Well, I failed. So did you.
So there are occasions when a character comes on screen, an actor playing a character comes on screen, and you're like, well, that's J. Jonah Jameson. And that's what I did, because J.K. Simmons is J. Jonah Jameson.
Even in Whiplash.
So much so that if they ever cast anyone else in the role, I'd be like, why? Why would you do that? In fact, J.K. Simmons himself is like, I'll come back.
He wants. I read he wants to come back for Homecoming. So if they reintroduce the character in the second one, bring him back.
Just put him back. That'd be great.
Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, he's so perfect for the role. Like the way, like when you watch him in the cartoons and every
he
other
looks
edition,
exactly like he does in the comics. Yeah. It's perfect,
and he embodies the character. Yeah. That is.
I will say that's another thing Sam Raimi did really well. The characters look like their comic counterparts for the most part.
Yeah, he did a good job of sticking true to the origins of the comics, but also putting his little flair on it.
Absolutely,
when he needed to, like the suit, like you mentioned. The suit. Really kind of cool design for the suit. They actually spent a lot of time, but they ended up sticking something close to the comics, but making it kind of their own at the same time.
And that's another comparison to Superman I noticed, because they have the Daily Planet where Clark Kent works And they're always obsessed with, we need stories about Superman. Now, granted, that guy doesn't hate Superman.
Yeah.
Like J. Jonah Jameson hates Spider-Man. I think that's where they made the difference to make sure it wasn't completely a ripoff.
Yeah.
But I think Spider-Man in the comics, it was like, oh, let's borrow a few ideas from that Superman series that DC has.
Yeah, but I like, Spider-Man's a photographer. He takes pictures of Spider-Man. That's how he makes his living. And he's in school because he's a super genius. So he's trying to become, something else. But right now, he's got a little tiny job as a photographer.
Absolutely.
Which I really like. And Peter and Jameson on screen are just fantastic. Their scenes are great.
Oh, and you get... Each of these movies has a great cameo from Bruce Campbell, the star of the Evil Dead movies.
Yeah, each one has a different cameo.
Also, the car from Evil Dead, I noticed, is in this movie.
Yeah.
It is the car the thief is driving away in.
Well, it's
Uncle Ben's car, but that's the Evil Dead car.
Yeah.
Which is funny. Mm-hmm. It's just like a nice little nod to fans of Evil Dead.
Yeah. Raimi did a good job there. But yeah, Bruce Campbell plays the wrestler promoter guy who misnames the human spider as Spider-Man. Thank God for all.
Yeah, that's funny because I like that little tidbit. Like, Peter's such a nerd. He even screws up the name of this hero. Like, he's like, oh, it should be called the human spider.
Like, he thinks that's a cool name.
Like, he thinks that's a cool name. And then this guy's like, that sucks. We're going to call it Spider-Man.
The Amazing Spider-Man. And then he's arguing with him. And
like, no, it's the human spider. He got my name wrong.
Get out there.
I love that.
That was fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, Bruce Campbell, he's great in all the movies. Even his tiny little roles. I like them. Yeah, but I agree with you, Sean. And this is one of my favorite comic book movies for sure. It stands apart. It doesn't follow the cliches, even though it was kind of before most of the superhero movies. It kind of set the standard. But it never feels like tired or worn out because it all still feels original, even today, And I really like, this movie. Yeah, it's a little bit silly. It's a little on the silly end for me. That's why I think, Spider-Man 2 is a marked improvement. Yeah. We'll get into that. But, yeah. But overall, this movie's a lot of fun. And it's a great superhero movie. And it's a great movie in general.
Yeah. I love it. It feels like a superhero movie. It feels like one. It doesn't feel like an action blockbuster like certain other Marvel films, as much as I enjoyed some of them. So yes, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
moving on.
Because we've been talking too long on this.
We've been talking a while. Let's talk about
Spider-Man 2.
Yes. So, of course, they made a sequel because it made $1 bajillion. In fact, Spider-Man broke the box office record for the fastest movie to gross $100 million ever. It was never expected to gross that much money that fast. It actually, it performed better than Harry Potter did, which blew everybody away. Like, what? No. It beat Harry Potter. That's crazy.
So it even made critics' top list. It's on Roger Ebert's top list of the year.
Yeah, critics.
That's Spider-Man 2. Sorry.
Yeah,
he hated Spider-Man, but
critics liked Spider-Man quite a bit, which is another interesting point. That it was back to the good stuff, right? With X-Men and Blade sort of pushed the comic book movies back into the good side of criticism, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of led the way for all the movies we got later.
Now, admittedly, between Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2, we do have Daredevil and Hulk. Yeah, not so great ones.
It started to putter out.
But then, 2004, Sam Raimi came back with Spider-Man 2.
Which is still considered by many people to be one of the best, if not the best, superhero movies of all time. And for good reason. I'm going to go on a limb here and say Spider-Man 2 is by far the best Marvel film that's ever been made.
Okay.
By far. I think that there are miles between this and the next best Marvel film. And I can defend that opinion. A little less defendable opinion, but maybe this is the best superhero movie of all time. We have The Dark Knight, unfortunately. So it's a very tough battle between these two. I guess for The Dark Knight, I kind of see them as different types of comic book movies.
They are.
The Dark Knight is your straight up dark thriller,
with Batman in it. Yes.
Batman
and the Joker.
Movie. Yeah.
Yes.
And that obviously a fantastic movie. I don't really want to put these head to head because they're so different.
I don't think that's
But Spider-Man 2 embodies what a comic book movie should be. Because that's the thing. The Dark Knight doesn't feel like a comic book movie, right? It feels like a superhero movie, but not a comic book movie.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2 is still a comic book movie. It just also actually is pretty serious and pretty...
It works also as a drama and an action film that isn't just a generic comic book movie. This is far from being a generic comic book movie.
No.
It's an amazing movie, honestly.
I love Spider-Man 2. Yeah, where should we start? Well, I think, like I said before, this movie fixes all the problems. The awkward dialogue is gone, so that's gone. The kooky silliness is mostly gone. It's still kind of a kooky movie because it's Sam Raimi.
Sure.
But all of, the comedy is, straight on works. It's all hits home. All of it's fantastic.
Yeah. There's a cutscene, I guess, if I want to say it's a little too kooky, but it's in the director's cut.
Oh, we're not talking about the director's cut. I should be clear. We're not talking about the director's cut here, so we won't even mention it.
Okay,
there's
never
a
mind.
director's cut. It's too long. It has problems. We're talking about the theatrical cut.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so everything in this movie, all the humor really surprisingly works. That's what's great. And the other thing I want to bring up, and this is just for all these movies, Sam Raimi is the expert of making bit parts. Because every bit part is so memorable to me in these movies. I just cannot get them out of my head. Even if they only have 2 or 3 lines. Pizza Guy. I love Pizza Guy. I don't remember his name because I'm terrible at names. So that's not because the character's not memorable. But I love when he's like, you must get there in 28 minutes or less. It's the guarantee. And then
Which, side note, I've never been to New York City. But I've heard. How is that possible to get halfway through the city in 28 minutes?
See, it's not possible.
Even as Spider-Man, you can't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why it's funny, but...
I just love that character. And then when Peter, begs him to, let him stay, he walks up to him with a really sympathetic look on his face and then rips the sticker off his helmet. And that sticker is still on his helmet in Spider-Man 3, which is so great.
True.
It's so funny that they kept that. I just think it's great. All the bit parts are great. Like we mentioned, Bruce Campbell in this movie, he's a theater usher,
and he won't let Peter in.
Won't let Peter in the play because he showed up a little late because he had to fight some crime. Yep. So that's another great bit part. I love the violin lady, Spider-Man.
Yep, that's their insert of that.
That's just it's so fantastic.
And then I love Peter's expression. It's kind of smirked. He's like, "That's a cool song."
He's like, "Yeah, they're singing about me. I'm awesome." Yeah, it's just really fun.
Yeah, so let's go for the movie. Well, not go for the movie, but what are some of the things that stand out to you about this movie that brings it above other superhero movies?
Yeah, so I guess we'll talk about the villain, Alfred Molina, as Dr. Octopus / Otto Octavius.
Most recognizable role might be Raiders of the Lost Ark, I guess, besides Doc Ock.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of movies as smaller roles I usually see him in. But this movie, he's fantastic. He does a great Otto Octavius, because we feel sympathetic towards him right away. He seems like a pretty cool guy with a pretty cool dream. It goes wrong. And the person he loves most dies.
Yep.
And then he has these arms which have a mind of their own and try and drive him to do things that are not very good. But he always has that good heart to him,
Yeah. Like you mentioned before, you mentioned the horror element going into the first one. I love the hospital scene where he's in the hospital and the arms, and he wakes up basically and the arms
that's
start
straight out of Evil Dead. Which is so funny.
I want to mention a side story about the music real quick. I've told you this.
Well, yeah, we can get there because that's part of the story.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, because that'll lead into Spider-Man 3.
Okay, fine. All right, you're right.
No, but you want to talk about the scene. Let's talk about the scene.
Yeah, the scene is it's very creepy. It's just it's terrifying to watch. It's just these arms coming out and you see this woman, and you see in the mirror behind her these arms raising, about to just.
What I love is the
apart.
editing because it'll zoom in on the face, and then they're looking at there's a chainsaw there, and of course the chainsaw straight from
Evil Dead.
And
yes.
And then when the guy raises above his head, he does this, and the camera just shows the chainsaw. You can't see it because this is a podcast, but he raises his arm above his head, and you just see his arm in the chainsaw in frame, and he brings it down, and that's such Sam Raimi,
It's beautiful.
It's great.
It's beautifully done.
It's a very creepy scene, and it's a great, it shows you how dangerous this guy is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right off the bat, you know that this guy is dangerous, and that's great to get that idea from the villain.
Yeah, and that's what makes him such a good villain. He's legitimately scary. He's not just, I'm evil and I'm going to destroy the world or something.
The other great thing about him, and almost all of the Spider-Man villains have this, the same 2 motivations that all of these MCU villains have, they don't have. Power and revenge.
Yeah.
It's not about power. It's not about revenge. It's about he's trying to finish this science experiment that went wrong.
Yeah. So he becomes a bank robber. He wants
He needs money to finance it, yeah.
And then Spider-Man gets in his way. So he's like, okay, I got to get rid of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
so I can
because
finish
he's in
this
my
off.
way.
Yeah.
Not because I'm going to get revenge
Not
on him.
because he hates Peter Parker, hates Spider-Man.
And it's not like revenge can't be done well, and it's not like power.
No, I mean, Loki is a great villain.
Yeah, wrote Loki for power, and like
and
Harry
revenge
Osborn
to a
for
point, at least in Thor, but that's not as strong. But
I meant Avengers, where he's more power hungry.
Yeah, no, you're true.
So they can
right.
be done well, but they're done so often, and usually it's like a screenwriter crutch. Like, I don't know how to motivate our villain. Let's just make him want more power. You know, that's an easy motivation. Yeah, but these characters are dynamic, and they all have a sympathetic core to them. You know, we sympathize with Otto Octavius, and he actually has redemption, which is what I really love. You know, at the end, he realizes, like, what have I done? You know, this is crazy, and then he's like, Peter's just like, help me stop this. You know, what do I do? And he's like, drown it in the river. You know, and then he actually sacrifices himself to save, you know, probably a lot of people. We're guessing, which is great. I love that kind of character redemptions type stuff in villains. And we didn't talk about Norman's end in their
I briefly mentioned it.
Yeah,
that
like,
Norman dies.
I love his last moment, which is don't tell Harry.
Don't tell Harry.
So even then, we get a little bit of sympathy from him because we know he cares about his son. So you know, there's that element.
And then that leads into where Harry and Peter are as friends.
Yeah, Harry and Peter in this movie.
Now, Harry, at the end of the first Spider-Man, saw Spider-Man, not Peter, but Spider-Man bringing in the body of his father.
He thinks
Spider-Man did something to him. What have you done? And so he has vowed to find out who Spider-Man is and kill him. Mm-hmm. And, of course, you know, that puts a strain because obviously he doesn't know Peter is Spider-Man till the end of this movie. Mm. But he does know that Peter knows who Spider-Man is because he takes pictures of him for the newspaper.
Yeah, and he actually has like an exchange because he's kind of starting to take it out on Peter. He's like, you know, if you knew who he was, would you tell me? And Peter doesn't answer because he just wants... Obviously, he's being put in an awkward position, but he just wants to be friends with Harry. He doesn't want to get involved in this whole revenge thing. He was just hoping... I think he's just hoping he gets over it more than anything. But yeah, it's a great progression from the first movie. It makes these movies feel connected and not episodic. You have continuation, and you have Mary Jane continuing from the last movie. What did the last thing that happened between him and Mary Jane was? I can't be with you. Yeah. You know, we can't be together.
She finally reciprocates this love that he has felt for this whole film and prior to this film, obviously.
And he turns her down because he knows and he sees with what happened to Aunt May that the people who he's close to are in danger. You know, and if anybody were to find out that he is Spider-Man, they would all be at risk. And he doesn't want to do that to Mary Jane. He doesn't want to be selfish. So you think he's making a selfless choice in his mind to say, you're in danger if we're together, so I need to push you away. Yeah. At the same time, he doesn't want to push her away because he loves her. You know? And that's the weird conundrum he's in, right? He's balancing these two feelings. And he doesn't know how to put them together. And Mary Jane clues into this. She can sense that Peter's conflicted. She can sense that he has feelings for her, but he's not admitting it, you know? And it's a great storyline for those two to have that sort of, you know, relationship. They have some great scenes together, too. Particularly love the scene in the cafe, which is interrupted by the car getting thrown through the window. But she's basically calling him out. She's like, okay, Peter, what the heck's going on? The way you reacted when I said I was dating, you know, everything you say to me, you wanted to go out for coffee, even though I'm getting married to this guy. What's going on, Peter? You know, do you love me? Right. You know, and that is a very strong scene. You know, it's a great relationship between the two. What'd you say?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think... And it's interesting because when you look at it from her point of view, she obviously has no idea he's Spider-Man. So she just thinks he's just being weird or being selfish or something. She has no idea.
She doesn't know what the deal is.
She's so confused. And so I recently listened to a review of this movie from another podcast. And they were talking about how her character is kind of bitchy in this movie. And I remember being younger, at a younger, more immature stage in my life where I thought that too. But watching it again now, it's like, no, she's not bitchy. She's reacting how any normal person would react.
Because if somebody...
because here's the thing. Yes, we're seeing it from Peter's point of view. So if you're not thinking of it a certain way, yeah, she comes off like a bitch. It's like, come on, he's Spider-Man, lay off. But it's like, she doesn't know that.
She doesn't.
She just thinks he's being an asshole, basically. So, what? Yeah, she can be a little bitchy.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's understandable because, you know, she's getting all this emotion from Peter that he likes her. But why won't he just admit it? Why can't they be together? So, in order to try and be happy, she starts dating, you know, Jameson, who's a bigger role in the comics, and that's probably like one of the
His son, not J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, no,
obviously
the junior. Yeah, no, and he has a bigger role in the comics. It's one of the nitpicks you could say about this movie. He's really underdeveloped.
He's supposed to be Venom, isn't he, in the comics? Or I think later versions of the comics he is.
Well, it depends on the version, but basically he's a bigger character.
Okay.
He's better established. In this movie, he's not very established, but that's because it's not about him. He's more of a plot device. But, you know, he just wants... All Mary Jane's trying to do is be happy and move on, but she feels like she can't. And you can see the like hesitation in her eyes because she really likes Peter Parker. Mm-hmm. But why isn't he... And it feels like he likes her. So what is the problem? There's a missing link, right? And that's why it's so powerful about that revelation scene when Mary Jane finds out who he is. You know, it's a great, strong scene because the look on those two, their two faces. Fantastic acting there, don't you think?
Yeah.
Just the look they exchange.
The only scene that I could give them that thought of Mary Jane credence to at this point is she just kind of runs out on this guy who she agreed to marry at the altar. She leaves him at the altar and doesn't say anything to the guy. It's kind of like,
leaves a note.
I feel bad for the guy.
Yeah, but she realizes what it was now. She figured out the missing link. Oh, he's Spider-Man. It all makes sense now.
Well, she sees that it's Spider-Man. She sees him in the costume.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
She has this
realization. Yeah, she finds that out.
Yes. Okay, let me continue.
Never mind.
She has this revelation, and now she knows why Peter has been so weird. And she's like, okay, I love Peter. I don't really love this guy. I'm just doing this because I thought it would make me happy. You know, so sure, there probably could have been a better way to handle it, but it's a movie, you know? She's got to go get with the guy that she loves, so it works, you know? And I love I do love how they play it where Jameson Sr. is like, cancel the caviar, because he's trying to save the money, you know? Yep. Or whatever he says. I think it's something like that. But yeah, you know.
Yeah, he's had some great bit parts in this movie. Let's see. Also, Aunt May, we could talk about her as well.
I was going to get into that last because that's like my big thing.
All right. What do we want to get into next then?
Well, whatever. What else did you like about the movie? You asked me.
Sure. What stands out is, I think...
Well, one thing I was waiting for you to bring up, the train scene.
Yes, I was going to bring up action.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think the action sequences are great, including the train scene, which is a scene that I feel like Spider-Man Homecoming, to jump ahead real quick, kind of tried to do again, in a sense. Didn't quite work on the same level. They tried.
I'm trying to think of a better action scene than the L train scene.
In a superhero movie?
In a superhero movie.
Okay.
It's really tough.
It's tough. There's a couple.
I think it might be the best.
Maybe as good
action scene in a superhero movie.
It is really good because it starts off with just Doc Ock is, you know, I believe that's right after him and Mary Jane are in the cafe. Or am I thinking of the wrong part of the movie?
Well, he calls him out. He's like, Peter, you know who Spider-Man is. Tell him to meet me at this clock tower.
Oh, right.
And we're gonna duke it out. And then they get on the train. And and Spider-Man's trying to stop him. And basically what Doc Ock does is he destroys this train controls, and he's like, well, you got to stop this train now, so see ya. And that's because basically, remember, Doc Ock's trying to get Spider-Man to Harry Osborn because he needs the tritium.
Right. Like, Harry Osborn has gotten in contact with Doc, or I think it's the other way around, actually. But
but
they make a deal.
His
basically.
plan now is to let's weaken Spider-Man so I can take him. So he gives him this train to stop, and he knows that Spider-Man's going to do everything in his power to try and stop this train. And he's right. And what ends up happening is he expends himself, and then Doc Ock's able to take him. But just the actual, whole scene.
The actual sequence. It's just like him webbing all as many of the buildings alongside as the train goes.
And just with his pure
they
strength.
keep breaking, so he keeps just like webbing more and more and more until he's got like 10 or 5 on each side or whatever, and he's just like pulling on for dear life. His mask is off, and there's one moment in the sequence that I think it was a little corny. They do basically everyone now sees that it's who he is. I mean, they don't know who Peter Parker is, but they see the person behind the mask, and they're all like, "I won't tell." Like these kids are like, "I won't tell Spider-Man."
The producer's kids.
Yeah, the producer's kids. I could tell.
I don't even actually know that, but it's just their line.
Okay, I can believe it.
No, but I guess I don't mind it, because it's like, yeah, it's a little hard to believe that all these people aren't going to.
Well, not only that, but then like
all these people aren't going to say that that who he is. But I think it works in like a comic book movie moment, where these people understand what Spider-Man just did for them, and they're willing to just say, oh, don't worry, we got you.
Okay.
And I like that. I think it works. And that's why, even though some people like to complain about that, I don't really see the complaint. I think it's fine. It's a comic book movie still, again, so just don't take it too seriously. But, I think it works. I think it's actually less silly than the, we're going to throw stuff at
the New York thing, throwing stuff at Green Goblin.
Yeah.
You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us.
Yeah, I think it's a little less
Was that
silly
okay. Here's another thing. Was that a 9/11 message? Because it came out right after 9/11. Do you think that was done post 9/11?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking that watching the movie, like, oh, maybe. Yeah. Could be. Okay. I was just wondering about that. But yeah, I agree. It's a little less silly than that.
But yeah, actual fighting sequence when they're climbing up and over and around the train is super cool, like through it and all that. It's really cool stuff.
Yeah, and Spider-Man has to dodge all these 8 arms, and it's really cool. Or 4 arms. I'm thinking of an actual octopus, apparently. 4 arms, and yeah, it looks really cool.
Yeah, no, I love it. And, all the action in the movie is really great. And that's what's good about the movie is it's a very entertaining action film, too. Even though it has all this character drama stuff, which I like, personally.
It doesn't.
Yeah, it's good to mention that, for me and like for these movies, what I really get into are the character stuff. The character moments, the scenes with dialogue and just two people getting along. I love that stuff. And that's what I get out of most with these comic book movies. I like to know about the characters. I want to feel the emotion. I want to get into the story, Whereas a lot of other comic book viewers might be like, I just want to see a bunch of action and a bunch of cool, badass superheroes fighting each other.
I mean, I think it depends on the movie. Yeah, if you're talking about the Avengers, I think at that point it's kind of like, okay, I want to see these guys fight.
Yeah.
Together against a big
But I think
problem.
that's what I see with all these modern
other.
MCU movies. They just want to show a bunch of fighting and a bunch of comedy.
Iron Man has a good character, though. Tony Stark has a solid character. Now, the problem is every MCU origin movie almost wanted to rip it off, Thor and Ant-Man.
You mean Iron Man, the first one, right?
Iron Man, the first one, is what I'm talking about.
I mean, sure, but what I'm trying to say is, it's more about the action. It's more about, I'm talking about, like, emotion, raw emotion. Like, movies that really make you feel something in your heart, that get close to your heart. That's what I want out of my superhero movies. And that's what Spider-Man 2 gives me. Iron Man doesn't give me that. A lot of other movies don't give me that. Sure, they have good characters.
What about Superman, the original?
No, not really. It's kind of a cheesy movie more than anything.
Okay.
I mean, there's nothing really gives me that makes me feel like, oh, this is really emotional or heart-wrenching. In fact, they deal with the death of his father in such a abrupt and ridiculous way. I actually laughed when he died when I saw it the first time. It was like, what? Wait, that's the Uncle Ben death scene? He just has a heart attack right after telling him this important stuff?
Yeah. It is a little weirdly done because it happens right
after. And then even worse in Man of Steel when it's like, hey, look, a giant tornado.
It's 100 times better than Man of Steel. But I think it's works though. It's still sad. You're right. It's a little silly. Like you can kind of chuckle at it.
Yeah, you just don't get to know him as well, though. You don't really know who that is as a character.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, obviously, I don't want to get too much into Superman. The movie could all start talking forever because I love that movie. But I think the character
and I was
in that
talking
really
more
works
primarily
too.
about the MCU films.
Okay, so the MCU, Tony Stark, I like as a character. Now, Tony Stark, you're right. I don't think he has as many dramatic moments, at least in the first couple Iron Man movies.
Yeah.
Maybe later with Avengers, Iron Man 3. I know everyone hates Iron Man 3 for some reason.
We can bring it up, I guess.
Iron Man 3 doesn't suck, guys. It's actually really good.
I'll talk about Iron Man 3.
But anyway, Yeah, no, like
I'm just letting you know. That's what I get into with superhero movies. The emotion. I want the emotion because I'm an emotional moviegoer.
Sure.
If a movie can make me feel emotional, that's the best a movie can ever attain. A fun movie is not going to be the same as an emotional movie for me.
Okay.
That there is a hierarchy for me, and emotions at the top. That's what I value the most. And luckily, Spider-Man 2 has a lot of that. Not only did I mention the characters, but let's get into it. Aunt May, because Aunt May is fantastic in this film, and the message that she gives to Spider-Man, fantastic messages that she has, especially the Aunt May pack scene, which is, I think, the greatest scene of any superhero movie I've ever seen.
Do you think she knows that she's
This is what
Spider-Man?
people indicate to. They point to this scene and they're like, well, maybe she has an idea. Because, I mean, it's kind of hinted at that she might have an idea, especially when she's seemingly making this giant case for Spider-Man and what a hero means. But point is, it doesn't really matter because what she's saying applies to everybody. I believe there's a hero in all of us. And in fact, I have this whole speech memorized. I love it that much.
Okay.
And I think it's just, there's some fantastic stuff in this. Because the way the scene starts is like, Peter finds out, he has this neighbor boy who, is helping her pack, and Aunt May's like, who he wants to be? Spider-Man. And he's like, why? That's kind of weird to him because he wants to get rid of Spider-Man. Spider-Man represents everything he doesn't like about his life right now. And
I suppose, real quick, maybe before we talk about this, we should mention the fact that he loses his powers, because we didn't really talk about that.
Yeah, so he's losing his powers, and assuming everybody who's listening to this has seen Spider-Man 2.
We've been spoiling these movies, so I hope so.
Yes. But yeah, so he loses his powers, and it's hinted that it's a psychological thing.
Yes.
Because his heart's not in it.
He's basically been torn between his college life, his work, his, this crush on MJ, or just friends with MJ and Harry.
His personal life.
Yeah.
He can't pay the rent.
He can't pay the rent, we see. Like, there's tons of problems in his life in the first 30 minutes. Hey, guys, look, character development and drama. I know, weird.
And then he starts to lose his powers, and he's like, why is this?
Yeah.
And eventually he's convinced that everything that's wrong with his life is because he's Spider-Man. And it's a very important moment for him. And it's actually based on an actual comic, Amazing Spider-Man number 50, one of the ones I've read, called Spider-Man No More. Fantastic storyline.
Yeah,
and this adapts it really well. And it's a great story. It's like, what does it mean to be a hero? What does it mean to do the things a hero does and to make the sacrifices that a hero does?
Yeah.
Because basically what Peter does in this movie, it's an arc, and he understands that you have to make sacrifices as a hero. And one of those sacrifices is you have to put stuff on the line for other people in order that they, can have better lives. And you might have to sacrifice a better life for yourself in the process.
That's the great thing about this whole trilogy is Peter, in these films, he has a general arc as a character, I guess. But like most good trilogies, he has an arc in each film, like a mini arc. Mm-hmm. The first film was him learning what it means to be a hero. Then the second film is living with the consequences of that.
Yeah.
And learning, hey, this is what I have to give up. If I'm going to be a hero.
Yeah, and it's a fantastic storyline, and you definitely feel for Peter 100% of the way through. You understand why he makes the decision to give us his powers. It's not like you're yelling at him. It's like, yeah, it makes sense.
No, and yeah, I mean, it's very dramatic in that way, too. And a lot of people compare it to Superman, too, because Superman gives up his powers. The thing is it's a conscious effort. He consciously gives up his powers for a little while. Was it stupid because they're in the North Pole? But anyway... They have to walk back. I love that. But anyway, sorry.
Yeah, it's a little... Because his powers actually physically go away.
Yeah, it's more of a psychological thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like an actual condition, And the scene with him and the doctor, I really like. It's
like,
there's nothing wrong with you. And then
it's like he's trying to ask him...
Well, he kind of tells the doctor without telling him that he's Spider-Man. And he's like, well, maybe it's this. And I love that scene because it's telling him, maybe, I need to stop trying to be Spider-Man anymore. Maybe that's what I need to do for the benefit of myself. And he's making a selfish choice, which sometimes people do, and that's okay, but...
It's a character flaw, guys. It doesn't mean he's a bad character.
Well, no, I mean, I understand it. It's understandable. But sometimes if you are called to be a hero, and that's what you really need to do inside, then you have to act in the interests of other people. And that's what Aunt May kind of shows him, is that, she says that a hero inspires people, and she's like, I believe there's a hero in all of us that, you know, keeps us honest, gives us strength, makes us noble, and then finally allows us to die with pride, even though sometimes we have to be steady and give up the things we want the most, even our dreams. And that is talking directly to Peter about Mary Jane. He knows he needs to give up this dream about Mary Jane. He feels like that's not going to happen now. So as a hero, he needs to step up and accept that he can't get the girl, and knows that not everything's going to go his way, but he needs to be a hero. That's what he's called to do in life. And it's great. And then the fact is, he's rewarded for doing that, because Mary Jane comes to him then. And that works out. And it kind of shows you the message that through sacrifice, you can actually be awarded more than you could ever have gotten otherwise. You know, that it takes a little bit of getting your hands dirty to achieve the things you really want in life. You know, it's a great message. That's why I want out of these superhero movies. It should have a great message that resonates with everybody.
Yeah, and I also like how it's, you know, it's not like just a hero who's automatically perfect at being a hero and like, I'm going to go in and save everyone. And there are other characters that have that arc. Tony Stark has an arc throughout his movies. Yeah. Other heroes do that. Not everyone does, though. I mean, Steve Rogers is practically perfect from the beginning.
I know. That scene really jumps on the grenade.
I love Captain America, guys. I love Captain America as a character. I love some of those movies, but yeah, he doesn't have much of a character arc.
He's Mr. Boy Scout.
Yeah, he's a Boy Scout. Even Superman has something of an arc. Even he has a bit of like his own pride and stuff at the beginning of Superman.
I'll give it to Man of Steel. They tried to do that, so...
I'm talking about the original Superman. But yeah, Man of Steel does it too. You're right.
I'll say that they tried. I don't know if it worked.
Failed, but they tried.
Yeah, but I like those arcs in movies. It's important to have that, and that emotional attachment to the character. Well, to wrap up Spider-Man 2, because we could probably talk about this movie forever.
Yes. I love this movie. Again, like the first Spider-Man. These two are sort of almost interchangeable, but I think at this point, Spider-Man 2 is my favorite in the series, easily. And it is one of my favorite comic book movies, and so is the first one. Like, I would put them both in my top 10 if I were to do a list of comic book movies.
Yeah, it's really tough for me to decide between this and The Dark Knight, but I think I'm going to put this one on top. I think this is my favorite comic book movie, because it embodies everything I like about movies, not comic book movies. You know, it's a great emotional storyline, has very well-developed characters with the great interactions between them, great villain, fantastic action, a lot of fun, knows when to slow down and when to speed up, knows when to take a break and have just a scene with two characters. And yeah, it's just a fantastic movie. One of the great examples of a sequel, completely living up to everybody's hype and exactly what, the sequel needed to be. So I definitely
I want to iterate. These are two of my favorite movies of all time as well. So I give them like perfect scores if I were to rate them. They give 5 stars.
I wouldn't give Spider-Man 5 stars.
Okay,
like I said.
that's fine.
Not a perfect movie. I thought we both agreed on that it has problems.
I would say they don't bother me as much, and it's a near perfect, and it's a lot of fun. And the fun and the great writing makes up for it. But anyway, I don't want to rehash that debate right now.
Yeah, but it has the.
But both are movies I really love. I'll at least say that.
I think Spider-Man 2 is definitely better. It fixes the problems that the first one has, and I think Spider-Man 2 is basically a perfect movie.
So now we get into a movie that we've indicated a little bit by saying the trilogy is great, that maybe Spider-Man 3 is a movie we like. What are your thoughts on Spider-Man 3? Or what do you want to talk about first?
Oh, you want me to talk about Spider-Man?
Well, because, you can talk about it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so this has been the movie that I've probably gotten the most, what? Things out of? You liked that? What? Yeah, I really like Spider-Man 3. And, okay, the movie has problems.
Yeah.
I'm not a blind idiot. The movie has issues, and I absolutely understand this. Sam Raimi understands this. But this movie is
not the abomination that so many people say it is.
No, because there's so much good stuff in it, and if you just focus on the bad stuff, it's just going to totally ruin all the good stuff, and I don't think it does.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the first 2 Spider-Man movies. This is a step down. It's a pretty decent sized step down.
To the first one, but the problems are a little bit more major. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yes, but I've heard people call this movie like horrible, like utter crap,
That's the
trash,
weird thing.
and I'm
People-
like, what?
People hate on this film. People absolutely hate on
They
this film.
hate on it almost like it's Crystal Skull or
And
something.
I feel like I
which
need
is
to like
weird.
defend it because it's like it's that important because there are so many good things in this movie, and we'll get into that. But let's start out. Let me just start out by addressing people's biggest issues
All right, go ahead.
and be like, yes, okay. So first of all, the things that I accept,
And
I
I'll
can't
say if
defend.
I agree with.
Yeah, the things
probably
I
will.
can't defend. Number one, Eddie Brock / Venom.
Here's the thing. I like that 70s show. I grew up watching that in high school. Topher Grace was really funny as Eric in that 70s show. He is terrible in this movie. He is horribly miscast. And he's the reason he's not in season 8 of that 70s show, except for the last episode. To which I think was a terrible career move. Because, I mean, I get it. You know, Spider-Man, big franchise. I get it. But he is awful in this movie. And
Well, yeah,
that 70s show suffered too because of his absence. So what the hell?
yeah, I just say he is terrible here. His acting is awful. He's just a completely unnecessary character, just thrown into a movie that's already really stuffed with stuff. You have to introduce a new villain, two new villains.
I want to point out too, because we're talking about Eddie Brock now and Venom. Sam Raimi doesn't like Venom as a character. Venom
He
wasn't
doesn't-
around in
he
the
didn't-
comics Sam Raimi grew up
He
with.
couldn't wrap his mind around Venom. He thought he was a boring character.
Yeah.
And
In which I agree with him. He shouldn't have had to make that a character. But because fans were like, no, you need to have Venom. Bring us Venom.
Avi
We love
Arad,
Venom.
the producer and the then CEO of
Right.
Marvel Studios,
And
was
then-
like, "Hey, you should put Venom in this movie because it's a great
Because the
marketing
fans want to have it. So I just want to point out, if you have a problem with Venom in this movie, blame yourselves. Blame your own stupid
Yeah.
fanboyisms.
But yeah, Venom doesn't work here, and yes, he's in a lot of the movie, but not a majority of the movie. He's probably got about a quarter or so of the film where he's in it, and yeah, it doesn't work very well. And he's part of the very big climax. But
And mind you, I don't hate Venom. I would love to see a good Venom movie. We're going
Well-
to get a good Venom movie. Well, I don't know if it's good, but we're going to get a Venom movie.
yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I'm actually hopeful because I think Venom's not a terrible character. I just don't think he belonged in this Raimi's vision of Spider-Man.
It doesn't fit
No.
at all. It feels forced.
So
and
yeah, as I was going to
absolutely.
say, the fact that they kind of force him in, that his character arc just doesn't really jive with the rest of the movie. He feels like he's forced in, and that's the problem. But again, it's not in the majority of the movie. You just have to sit there and just endure the Venom parts. It's not gonna rip the movie to shreds. It's just gonna be a little.
It's odd negative aspect in an otherwise
It's just
not
gonna-
terrible movie.
Yeah, it's just gonna be an unfortunate distraction from the good stuff.
And it's not a nitpick aspect. It is a big part of the movie, mind you, but it's not so big it ruins the rest of the
No,
movie.
yeah, it's
I don't
definitely a
think.
problem, and I completely agree. But yeah, again, don't let it ruin the movie. The other thing that people really let it ruin the movie is the dancing scene.
The, 4-minute scene?
It's less than that.
Something like that?
Yeah, the thing is, so okay. So this is the other thing I can't defend because it is so silly
Okay.
and over the top, and it feels like we just jumped into a different movie. It doesn't like if somebody told you that was a Spider-Man movie and just showed you that scene, you'd be like, "What the heck?"
It's really uncomfortable and awkward, and it doesn't fit.
It's just
At
way
all.
too silly. Like,
Yes.
there's a certain little element of silly that we accept in Spider-Man movies because they're Spider-Man movies. But this goes way over the end, and it's like,
Yeah.
okay, wait, what are we
And
doing
it just
here?
ends with what? Him slapping Mary Jane?
Wait, no,
It's
'cause
whatever.
that's a different thing.
Okay.
But yeah, the dancing scene itself is silly.
Yes.
Okay, now I think I can defend everything else. So Sean, point out things that you think are problems, and
Mind you, in case you can't tell, I like this movie as well, although I think you are a little bit more of a fan of this movie.
like you
which
said,
is
the
fine.
slapping Mary Jane scene.
I don't have a problem with that. It's just
Okay.
funny that's
I like that.
the whole point of the scene.
It's a really emotional moment.
Yeah.
Because Peter gets carried away, goes too far.
Yeah.
Because he's confronting Mary Jane because he's mad at her because she has, ruined his life basically in his mind.
Well, but we should say prior to this, I will say there are stupid things characters do, but it's not necessarily a problem with the writing. It's just more they're stupid things, and they are annoying. For instance, we have, at the end of Spider-Man 2, we didn't mention it again, Harry finds out who Spider-Man is. He finds out it's his best friend.
Yeah.
And so now he basically, at the end of Spider-Man 2, hears the voice, or I guess the remnants of Green Goblin,
His
the
father,
ghost of
yeah.
his father, which Side note, did you ever get that Green Goblin was supposed to be some evil ghost side thing? I think that's a little
It's not.
too silly. What is it?
He undergoes the same treatment his father
Right.
went under to become the new Goblin, which is what Harry's storyline is, which we'll get to. And what this does is, in the same way it did to his father, it gives him visions and mind alteringness. And in this version, it takes the form of his father. And his father is telling him, "You have to avenge me. You have to kill, Peter Parker." First,
He literally screams "Avenge me!" By the way, which is amazing. But yes, I agree.
It is.
Okay.
But it's that sort of same campiness from the first.
No,
movie.
I'm saying I love it.
So anyone who has a problem with this is just insulting the first movie because they do the same thing. So it's like,
I will say in the first movie, it feels more like just a case of schizophrenia.
yeah, but I think it's supposed
insanity.
to be that way too in this one because it's the same treatment that
Okay,
he undergoes.
that's true. I'll give you that.
So it's just another case of that.
Yeah, so he becomes Green Goblin Jr.
Wait, that's going into that. We're just talking about problems.
Okay, so
We're not going through the story, man.
Sorry, problems.
Other problems that people bring up.
Basically, the problem is he eventually, through why does he get amnesia and that for no reason? What is the reason for him getting amnesia?
Well, it's another plot device, sure. Well, it's not for no reason. He hits his head really hard.
No. I understand that the physical why he gets amnesia, but what is the plot reason?
It's an interesting way to reset their dynamic, and for Peter to be put in an awkward position with Harry, where they were enemies, and now they're friends again. But Peter has a lot of secrets that he can't tell Harry, and he has to figure out how to handle that situation. And it also plays into the fact that towards the end, everything kind of falls apart around him. He realizes that Harry is being a jerk and has regained his memory, and Mary Jane leaves him and all this stuff. So it kind of spirals out of control. It's just a way.
Well, that's one thing I think Mary Jane is kind of dumb in that scene where she breaks up with Peter because of Harry.
Do you want me to address that?
Because that's where I was leading to. That was another thing I was going to lead to with that.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people insult this because it's like, oh, he's Spider-Man, but it's like, okay, Harry is obviously revealed. Hold on.
All right.
Harry has. You gotta let. If you're asking me a question, now,
fine.
let me finish.
Go ahead.
Harry has revealed to Mary Jane that he has superpowers, and he is strong. And sure, on the face of it, could she just been like, hey, Harry is a psychopath now, go kill him? I think she's been put in an awkward position. She doesn't like Peter very much right now. This has been established.
No.
She's not a fan of him. So they're not in the greatest terms. And Harry has said, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill him. And sure, she knows he's Spider-Man, but she knows Spider-Man isn't invincible. And she's trying to protect him. She's just doing the best thing that she can, and then... And sure, is it a perfect thing for her to do? Could she have done that? Sure, but she's a human being, and she's just trying to, keep everyone safe and trying to avoid the violence.
Okay, I guess I get what you're trying to say there. I guess I have a curious question. And what is it that a character can do something dumb where it goes from, oh, they're just a human being to, oh, they're an idiot. This is bad screenwriting.
Well, it's counteracting logic. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily illogical for her not to tell him because she was directly told by Harry, don't tell him. If you do, I'm going to kill him. And I mean, basically she would just have to call him on his bluff and say, oh, he's Spider-Man, even though she knows that Harry knows he's Spider-Man. It's very obvious that Harry knows this. And who knows?
Well, no, I'm not saying she tells Harry that. I mean, yes, obviously he knows that. What I'm saying is, why couldn't she on the bridge be like, hey, okay, don't look around because he's right over there. But Harry knows he's insane now again, and he wants to kill you. So
because he's listening to the whole thing.
He's far enough away. He can't.
You can tell that he hears him. Great performance. He even comments on her.
Can he hear?
I'm assuming he's using some sort of technology.
Okay,
to listen in on
you're assuming. That's something you just added in.
No, because he comments on how she did.
Yeah, you could see that he looked
there.
Right, he could see that Peter looked horribly upset, and looks
Okay, I don't know.
distraught.
I think this is such a nitpick too. It's like, who cares?
All right.
It's such a small thing.
I'm just bringing out there are problems. I like this movie, but there are
I
problems
just don't see
with
this
the
as a
movie.
problem. So what? She does what he asked. Like, do you really have a huge problem with that? Like I said, Harry knows that he's Spider-Man. We don't know what Harry told Mary Jane off screen. Because there's obviously more to that conversation. We cut away. You know? So it's not that... I just don't think it's that big of a deal. It's like, okay, so is this really a huge problem? I don't think so. You know?
All right. No, it's fine.
He made a threat. She got scared. Because she cares about Peter.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
All right, anything else?
It annoys me. Not all of it, because some of it makes sense, but the early dynamics when she is finding out that she got fired from the play and stuff, and she doesn't tell Peter, but she clearly expects that he should know. Like, she's mad at him for being excited about, like, this, he's being honored by the city for being Spider-Man.
That's not what she's mad about.
She's mad about the kiss. Yes, I know. And
Yeah.
that's Peter being an idiot
And
being
Peter
a douche.
isn't telling her anything. He doesn't even mention Gwen Stacy. And she figures this out at the dinner. Why haven't I heard about her? I don't know. So she's just given more and more reason to think, well, she didn't want to tell. The first reason she didn't want to tell him is because he was having a great day. And she got fired. And she didn't want to... You've never had that where you're like, I'm not going to talk about what happened to me because I don't want to think about it.
No,
I don't
understand.
want to confront
I
it
understand that, but she is...
And how
even
Peter,
before the kiss, she's already obviously angry. She's already pouting, and she's like already... It's clearly
she's
showing
jealous
signs
a
of being
little
like,
bit.
oh, God.
She's a little jealous because Peter's life is fantastic and hers is falling
Okay.
apart. And I think it's a very human thing. And first of all, she already talked about the review with Peter, and he handled that pretty poorly. He was like, you just get back on the horse. And it's like, that's not what she wants to hear. That's not what anyone wants to hear. Don't treat me like I'm a 2-year-old, you know?
Yeah, get back on the horse. That was a real idiot. Yeah, he's being an idiot there.
Yeah.
I agree. He literally says, go get him, Tiger.
Yeah, and
after he's about to go after
the way
some...
he handles it is just
Yeah.
poor. And he's kind of getting overconfident a little bit. And that's what upsets Mary Jane.
Okay.
And I think it makes sense. And then the Gwen Stacy thing kind of compounds that. And not only... Wait, so then the girl that you kissed as Spider-Man, you know her? And she's your, school
Yeah, it'd be
partner?
one thing... Yeah. Right there, by the way, he should have just been like, oh, that was...
And not only that,
was a
that's
thing.
their
That was
kiss.
a publicity thing.
That's the kiss that they
Yeah.
had that was really special to Mary Jane. That she, still remembers to this day. And Peter treated it as if it was nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a kiss. And I'm like... And she's like, well,
I think-
who was kissing her?
Yeah.
Spider-Man or Peter?
Yeah. And I think the way they end that relationship at the end of the movie, it feels very, bittersweet, because it doesn't feel like they're back together, does it? It feels like
I think it's a nice... No, it's like a comforting thing. Where they got in each other's arms. They've been through hell. They just lost one of their best friends.
Right.
And they're just going to dance. And it's really sweet. We don't need to hear the dialogue. We don't need to have
I
this
got
really
a feeling
exposition-heavy
it felt like it was like we're friends, but we're not going to be dating anymore.
I don't know where you're getting that. Because I just think that they have to kind of
Well,
restart.
she's singing that song about how she's never going to fall in love again. Yeah, I feel like that was a way to tell the audience, this is the end of their relationship. And had they had Spider-Man 4...
That's one way to take it, I think.
I don't think they would have gone together.
I don't know if that's necessarily for sure. I just think that they've resetted what they've been through. Right?
Okay.
They've been through a lot, and I think that, that song might not necessarily be exactly what she's feeling.
Well, let's talk about some of the other good things. Sandman.
Oh, yeah. Sandman is a fantastic villain. He has a little too little screen time due to the force-in of Venom, but I love his arc. I love that he starts out as a criminal on the run who was just trying to get money to save his daughter, who was sick from some sort of disease.
Again, it's a dramatic reason why. Mm-hmm. He'd be doing these horrible
motivation.
crimes.
Yeah.
And then we find out later, we get motivation for Peter to hate Sandman because it looks like Sandman was the guy who actually shot
Yeah, like,
Uncle
we were
Ben.
wrong. These guys were partners.
Yeah, and this guy shot Uncle Ben.
A lot of people thought that was silly and, like, too convenient, but I'm like, first of all, it's a comic book movie, remember? Second of all, it's a great motivation, for Peter and the revenge motif that they overtake.
It does... I did think of Scream 3 in that moment, because Scream 3 of all movies...
Only you would think of Scream 3.
Only I would, I know. But they talk about at the end of a trilogy, something gets revealed that we didn't know before at the beginning. And I get that feels like that, but I think here it works, and it doesn't feel forced. This isn't, oh, Leia's also your sister, Luke.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
That's true. No, but I think that I like it because it establishes a relationship between the two of them, and then it motivates Peter to, like, go down the revenge storyline and to see...
No, it's fine. I was just smiling about something.
Okay.
Sorry.
He motivates him to go down that path, and I love the scene when he's like, hey, guess what, Aunt May? Spider-Man killed Sandman last night, thinking, oh, she's going to be ecstatic. And she's like, what? That doesn't sound like Spider-Man. What happened? And he's like, I thought you'd be happy.
Well, it's also should note he has the symbiote, the black symbiote that we see come down that becomes Venom later.
So that's helping compound his descent into the darkness. He has this relationship with the symbiote, which causes revenge and anger.
Some of that I like.
Oh yeah,
and that's like the good side of the Venom stuff.
Well, the Black Suit Spider-Man is straight out of the comics. Again, it's a very good storyline. I love the cartoon rendition of it.
In the comics, do you know, was that a lead into Venom, or is that just a completely different beast altogether?
No, the symbiote is Venom.
Okay,
that's true. It takes over Eddie Brock. It's all from the comics.
Okay,
it's done a lot better.
I'm sure.
But the Black Suit Spider-Man stuff I really like because he feels powerful, and there's some. There's reason for him to want revenge, and this suit is going to help him get there and help him, defeat Sandman and defeat, these people that he wants to get revenge on. Harry, for instance, and yeah, for the stuff with Sandman, I really like that sort of motif of forgiveness that we're trying to get. That Aunt May talks about how important it is to forgive, because that's what she does in Spider-Man 2. When Peter, which a scene we forgot to mention, which is a fantastic scene, Peter sits down and tells Aunt May, hey, I'm responsible for Uncle Dan's death. And how she reacts to begin with is a great reaction. By the way, most Superman hero movies wouldn't do this right away. She gets up, she doesn't say a word. She pulls her hand away and walks upstairs.
Yeah.
She's upset. They don't do like, oh, don't worry, honey, I forgive you, I understand. She acts like a human being. She's upset. And then later on we find out she's moved on. She's forgiven him, and that's something that's important to Aunt May. And she tells Peter that this stuff, like revenge, is like a poison. It's not going to solve anything. Taking an eye for an eye is not going to help things. You have to forgive people. Yeah,
and like I mentioned, Peter's arcs in the last two. In this one, it's learning about forgiveness.
That's about forgiveness and commitment.
Yeah,
those are the two big lessons here.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're great stuff with Aunt May. She does the performance so well again. I love her little anecdote about her and Uncle Ben. How they got together. Again, it brings up.
Yeah.
They have
it feels like it's just a human moment thrown in there, and I love it when movies can do that, where they just throw in human moments to humanize their characters and make them 3-dimensional. I know.
I know, it's so weird.
Certain movies just. Nowadays, I don't want to be that guy, but a lot of movies, they just don't do that well.
Characters are very one-dimensional these days. Yeah, they don't have that.
Yeah.
They're human beings in a world with a story, So, yeah, I agree with you entirely, and I think that really works well with the fight with Sandman. And getting into Harry stuff, I love the Harry arc in this movie because
I love it.
Peter tries to get revenge on him, and they have a great fight scene in Harry's mansion where they fight each other, and it's a brutal fight. They're not in costumes or armor or anything.
And their banter fits too. It's like two old friends are now mortal enemies. It's like, I protected you in high school, now I'm going to kick your little spider ass. Ooh, so scared. Ooh. I love that reaction.
It's great. Yeah, it's a fantastic scene, and then it actually ends up with some serious consequences. Harry throws a grenade at Peter, and without even hesitation, Peter flips the grenade around, throws it right back at Harry. It blows up in his face. And in the next scene we see Harry, we see that it is
half of his face. Well, not half, but a good portion of his face.
A good portion of his face is burnt pretty badly. You know,
he's now Two-Faced. No, but
yeah, but I like that because it.
Now I don't have a problem with this, but I want to do it for the people listening. Let's talk about the butler, because a lot of people have a problem with the butler, Deus Ex butler thing.
What is the problem with this?
Okay, I'm going to repeat what I've heard.
With Bernard.
The fact that he this whole time has supposedly known that Norman Osborn was the Green Goblin, that Spider-Man was innocent, and he never told Harry.
Because I think that it was a difficult thing to tell Harry, because he's like, I know you wanted to defend your father's honor, but I think you need to know this now. Because he sees what it's doing to Harry. That it's almost going to kill him. It's possibly going to kill him. And that's where he didn't want... If you're saying... he's just a butler. It doesn't feel like it's his place. But when it gets to that point where it's like, I need to protect Harry, he's like, I got to tell you this. I cleaned your father's wound. The blade that pierced his body came from your father's glider.
Yeah.
And, I think that he's only saying it now because he thinks he's going to get himself killed. I really think that's the only reason he's telling him.
Someone.
Because he's not the kind of... because remember, he served Norman all his life, right? That's what we're supposed to assume.
I feel like he's the kind of butler, kind of like Alfred in Batman, where he legitimately cares about this family. Like, he's been connected to this family. It's not just, this
and he doesn't
is
want
my
to just
job.
say, hey, Harry, guess what? Your father is a horrible, terrible person
like,
who
no,
killed people.
Has looked out, even though Harry's been an adult since Norman died, he still has looked out for this kid who lives in his mansion with him. And they're much like Alfred. I think he cares about him. So it's kind of like, yeah, you're wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, this is actually one of those problems where I'm like, that's a problem? Like,
I know. This is one of those movies where it's not like I get why people hate this movie, but I still like it. This is one I'm like, I don't get it.
Like,
there
if
are
you really
problems.
want to let Venom ruin the movie for you, okay, we'll let it ruin the movie for you. But I just feel like it's such a shame because the stuff we've been talking about, all are great stuff. Spider-Man and MJ, I love their dynamic in this film. How does a relationship work when you're a superhero? It's pretty darn tough, actually.
Yeah.
And I like how it shows that.
Like, at least 80% of the movie is good.
Yeah.
That's a good movie, guys.
Yeah, it's just, there's certain parts of the movie that don't work. Absolutely agree. But, let's get to the ending now, because I think there's
my gosh. Yeah.
First of all,
I will say, this is the one good thing I could think of having Venom there. It's that it allows for a more interesting dynamic of having 2 versus 2. And Harry and
Well, it
Peter
could have been someone else. That's
2.
what I'm saying. It could have been someone else.
Okay. But that still leaves the thing of 3 villains then.
Yeah, but I think that it's not the problem that there's 3 villains. It's the problem that one of the villains
I've heard some
really
people
bad.
complain that there's just 3 villains.
Well, I think that's a dumb complaint because
I agree.
They could have been established better.
Yes.
You're right. But if they had established, if they made Jameson in the last movie, they developed him a lot, and then they made him Venom.
Or hell, what about having the lizard in this? Dr. Connors is already established.
Yeah, or doing something like that. With an established character, I think that people would have been okay. I think it's okay. It's as a movie like Civil War proves, it's you can make a good movie with a ton of characters.
Absolutely. Civil War does it well. And I agree.
So I don't think that's the reason. I think the reason is Venom just is bad. Know?
That's true.
But when it comes to the final, when Harry dies, it's a very emotional scene. This is a guy who's been with us for these 3 movies, and he's dying, and that's sad. And you really feel it. And it's a really fantastic way to show, that there are sacrifices. It builds on that sort of message from the second movie. Things are going to happen, and they're going to be hard.
And it's really sad when it's sad when he dies, because you don't get any dialogue. It's just he sacrifices his life to save Peter, because Venom's about to stab him with these 2 poles, and he gets in the way, and he's stabbed right in the chest.
No, he gets stabbed by his glider.
By his glider, that's right. He's going to stab Peter
with
the glider.
Which is interesting,
that's true. That's a good parallel.
He is
he
instead
dies
of trying
like
to kill
his father,
Spider-Man,
but the
he
difference
is sacrificing himself to save Peter.
Yeah.
Which is great. And that's a little subtle thing they put in the movie that I really like.
And it's just the look on Peter's face, and the reactions of MJ and Harry, it's so sad. And it's a great trilogy end. And also, I want to say, this might be my favorite Stan Lee cameo.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorites,
You know,
absolutely.
Some people can make a difference.
I just love it because it's Stan Lee. It is so simple, but it's just Peter there, Stan Lee's most known, beloved character, and Stan Lee walks up and gives him this...
They're looking at a billboard that
Yeah.
says Spider-Man to be presented, key to the city.
Yeah. And it's just him just stating this piece of, like, life advice almost.
Well, the nice thing about it is the
"Enough
last
said."
two movies, Stan Lee got to dodge rubble. That was his cameo. He
Right.
dodges rubble. And then this one, he gets to
Yeah.
actually have a line, which is nice. But yeah, I really
But
like this
it's-
cameo.
It put a smile on my face. I was like, that's actually a
Enough
sweet
said.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah, too bad Guardians of the Galaxy 2 ruined all the Stan Lee cameos for me.
Oh my gosh, what was that?
I don't know, it's so bad.
It's like they took the Deadpool cameo, because they kind of wanted to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but then they took it too far.
Yeah.
They just made him really horny, and it was weird.
Well, it was because he's like, well, and then there was the time I played this guy.
Yeah.
Like, I played a FedEx delivery
that's
man.
right.
Yeah, where he's like, this is why Stan Lee's
Oh, I'm
in all
thinking
the
of a
movies.
different cameo for some reason. Oh, that's the one. Never mind. Forget it. Yeah, no, I remember that, and that was stupid.
No, but anyway, back to what we were talking about. Yeah, I agree. And then I did want to talk about the Sandman stuff again. First of all, we should mention the birth of the Sandman scene.
Oh, gosh. Great scene. Great music.
Oh, Christopher Young.
Can I tell my wonderful
Go ahead.
story?
Talk about...
So, I'm a bit of a horror fan, and one of the horror movies of the 80s that a lot of people know is a movie called Hellraiser. You know, it's a pretty scary movie about demons and stuff, but anyway, it is done by Christopher Young. He did the score, and it's a very memorable score. He also did the score for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, but anyway. Sam Raimi, when filming Spider-Man 2, there's such a thing called, temp tracks, where you put a track in...
It's done all around
Yep.
Hollywood. It's considered
Right.
the bane of composers' existence.
Oh, yeah, people like Danny Elfman hate temp tracks.
Yeah. Because
And-
then the director ends up loving the temp track, editing the scene with
Yes.
the temp track in mind, and then saying, well, can't you just do something like that?
Basically, it's a music they play over while filming the scene or editing it to kind of get the mood of the scene before the actual score.
Because everybody
is
knows,
done.
if you ever seen one of those movie edits where they don't have music in it, they have some Star Wars of that where you hear it without John Williams, and it's so weird. It's
It is
completely
weird.
different.
But anyway, basically, during the scene when Dr. Octavius is first doing his experiment, that goes wrong. He put this music from Hellbound Hellraiser 2, which Christopher Young also scored. Yes, that is the title. It's a good movie, actually. But anyway, he put a bit of that score in. And he liked it so much, Sam Raimi did, that he said, Danny Elfman, do the score like Christopher Young. Do the score like Hellraiser 2. I love it. And Danny Elfman, again hating temps, said,
Nope.
I don't want to do it. If you want Christopher Young, hire Christopher Young. So he did. And that broke off this long-standing relationship he had with Danny Elfman since Darkman for a long time. They're all right now, but for quite a while. And that's why Christopher Young did the score in
The
Spider-Man
funniest thing
3.
is the music really works in that scene.
That's the funny thing. It's one of the rare times where I'm like, the temp track actually worked out really
it's
well.
really good, and I'm glad that they put it in. I understand what Sam Raimi's talking about. And then the interesting thing is, because Danny Elfman had this falling out, he didn't agree to sign on for Spider-Man 3. Because he said, was quoted at the time as saying, my worst experience in Hollywood was working on Spider-Man 2. I hated it.
God.
He said that. And so they were at a huge falling out, so he hired Christopher Young to do the music to Spider-Man 3. Which is one of those happy coincidences that actually turned out really well, because Christopher Young's score is fantastic in
He's
Spider-Man
a great
3.
composer as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I love the Sandman theme, and I love the music when he's doing the Birth of Sandman stuff. The music is
It's
fantastic.
so dramatic but sad at the same time, so it has a tragic feel to it when you listen to it.
Yeah, it's a great
And it's perfect
theme,
for that
and-
character because he's a tragic figure.
Yeah.
Now, I
absolutely.
guess, and it's, you kind of want to know, who was he before he decided to rob banks? I guess he was just a normal, average Joe guy, but we
Yeah.
don't really know much about
We
him.
don't know.
The reason
particularly,
is, like you said, his daughter is dying. What did they say she's dying of? Is it
They
an
didn't
unnamed
say.
illness? Okay,
It's
it's
just-
an unnamed illness.
She's obviously sick.
But she's obviously sick. That's fine. You don't have to name the illness. We don't have to be leukemia or something. It can be an unnamed illness.
A very expensive illness. We understand that illnesses are expensive.
That's all we need to know.
And
I've heard some people nitpick that.
Well, yeah, we'll get to the speech. But I just wanted to, because Christopher Young, eventually Danny Elfman actually helped Christopher Young on the score of Spider-Man 3. So
well, yeah,
they started mending the bridges.
We do have the Danny
there.
Elfman Spider-Man theme at the beginning in the credits.
Of course, they still use Danny Elfman's themes. But I'm just saying that the bridge, he started to mend the bridge, and then they actually ended up working together again on Oz the Great and Powerful. So all is well again. But it worked out. And then, like you were bringing up, the actual end monologue of Sandman, where he talks about why he did what he did and the actual true story. Because we should say, throughout the movie, Peter was envisioning this, like, angry madman murdering Uncle Ben in cold blood, just saying, his partner saying, come on, let's go, and he's like, no, and then shoots him, like straight
like he's
up
just
murder.
Some evil guy,
which is understandable. That's what Peter would think what happened, right? And then he tells him the true story. He's like, no, my partner came out and the gun was in my hand, and I accidentally fired, and then actually he stayed because he wanted to get help. He wanted to make sure that he didn't want to get away with the cash. He felt terrible because he just shot an old man. Yeah. And that was a great scene. And then you can just see the emotion in Peter's face. He's like, I forgive you. And it's a really powerful moment. And then he blows away in the sand. And I hear a lot of people complain, we don't get to see the resolution with his daughter. I'm like,
that's a deleted scene, actually, which I do think they should have kept in.
I just don't think it's that necessary.
I don't think it's that big a deal.
Because we understand, he's going to move on. And sure, his daughter was sick. But that's not what the focus of the narrative is on. It was about the forgiveness aspect.
Yeah,
right?
It was about Peter, not about his daughter.
About Peter.
Yes, there's a recently released director's cut that added that scene in.
Is there a director's cut now?
I guess so. I found out about this today. Oh. So I haven't seen it. Okay. But I just found out about it.
Did Sam Raimi contribute?
I again just found out about it. All I know is there's a director's cut. And that scene's at the end.
That's fascinating because I
want to watch it now.
Some of the problems with the movie.
Apparently, they left in the dancing sequence, though.
Oh.
Of course. Well, why not?
It'd be tough to edit around it, but yeah. I think they could do it.
I think you could. But they did leave that in, and a few of the other things that people complain about, but whatever. So...
To round
it up, I legitimately like this movie. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people are too hard on it. Yeah. I think... And I get it. After Spider-Man 2, expectations were really high. I get that. So I think that hurt it more. I think if this was in, like, Ant-Man sequel or an Iron Man 4, people would be more, like, forgiving of the problems. But because it's in that trilogy, which have
people
two
wanted
beloved
to top
movies,
Spider-Man 2.
You can't.
No.
It'd be really difficult.
To this day, you can't.
I mean, by God. And I think Sam Raimi did a good job. Problem is, parts of it, his heart wasn't in it because of the studio mandating Venom.
Of course, which is okay. Whenever studios mandate something that the director doesn't want to do, it almost always turns out to be a bad thing. I can think of a few examples, very few examples, where studio intervention fixes a movie. It's true. Sometimes it happens, but for the most part, it's no. Studios, stay away from directors' visions,
Just give them money, hire the director, and let them direct.
Yeah. One thing that they did, like Alien, that's the one example I thought of where I'm like, okay, thank God the studio intervened. But
there was some silly,
the ending
God.
of Alien.
Yes.
If anyone wants a fun time, look up the original Ridley Scott ending of Alien.
It's quite a bit different.
Yeah.
They would not have had a franchise.
Thank God the studio stepped in. But most of the time, when the studio steps in, it makes the movie worse. In this case, that happened.
Yeah.
They should have just left it be. Let Sam Raimi make the
Nightmare on Elm Street's another one, by the way, where the director had a terrible idea for the ending. And they fixed it with the studio. But that's another podcast, which we will do.
Okay. I'll be excited.
Of course.
So, wrapping it up. Yeah, it's a good movie.
I like this movie quite a bit.
Just relax for the issues, like the emo Peter stuff I get complaints about all the time. That's
Some
fine.
of the emo Peter stuff was okay.
It's funny. I love when he's dancing down the street because, if you were a geek and you thought you were on top of the world, that's something that you would do.
Everyone's looking at him like, you're weird. It'd be one thing if they were all like, yeah, and it turned into a musical or something. But they're looking like any normal person in the theater was reacting to Peter doing that. What a dork.
They were all staring
He's
at him.
a dork, guys.
Like, what are you doing?
He's a dork. He should be doing something dorky.
Yeah.
It makes perfect
It's
sense.
funny too, yeah. And I like it because when he's on the phone with Dr. Connors, when Dr. Connors is like, "Hey, this is nasty."
He's just
stuff.
ignoring everything.
He's like,
he's
"Oh
saying.
yeah, I heard you. Do you have more cookies?"
Get more cookies. He's eating these
I
cookies.
can make some. Yeah, would you? And it's just so un-Peter-like, which is nice to see,
Yeah, it's kind of
Because
Peter's
Toby plays it really
dark
well.
side, but it's still dorky.
I just realized we never talked about raindrops
Oh,
falling
you
on
want to
my
talk
head.
about that real quick?
Yeah, from Spider-Man 2.
I like that montage.
Well, the thing is, the emo Peter really is evocative of that montage, right? And anybody who complains about the emo Peter montage, I'm like, have you seen Spider-Man 2? There is a sequence where raindrops keep falling on my head from Mind Blank. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is playing, and he's waltzing around the theater all happy. He trips 3 times because it's edited that way. That's how funny it is. And then he puts his glasses back on. He looks like a total dweeb. And then the whole scene ends on a freeze frame with a blurry Peter Parker smiling.
Yeah,
That's okay.
That's pretty sick.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But God forbid he walked down the street and looked like a dork. That's too far. But frozen freeze frames, great. Absolutely
Again, like I
serious.
said, it'd be one thing if people were like, "Oh yeah, that's so cool," but no one is doing that in the scene, and it's very
funny.
realistic.
It's
and
supposed to
funny.
be funny. It's a joke.
Like, calm down, people.
Yeah, so-
My God.
But yeah, to wrap it up, I love this trilogy. I think all of the movies are good. They're of varying degrees of quality,
Yeah.
sure. But it's a nice round trilogy that actually builds on each film. They all feel necessary in the story, and it never seems like, they ran out of ideas, so they're just trying to figure out what to do now. It doesn't feel like a rehash. The movies never feel like a rehash.
This is like any normal good trilogy, like Star Wars, the original trilogy, or Lord of the Rings, where
Yeah.
there's that one that's really not as good as the others, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's
It's actually a lot like Return of the Jedi in that sense, because, yeah, it's not nearly as good as the first two, but it's a solid movie.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings is a good example too. Like the Two Towers, that's the filler one, but it's still a really good movie and has a lot of merit to it.
Yeah.
And then just because a movie has a couple problems, I just don't feel like that always should ruin the entire movie, especially when
Yeah.
the rest of the movie is really good. So sure, you can nitpick Spider-Man 3 all you want, but first of all, some of those nitpicks are true about the first two, so you got to
Yeah.
be careful. Second of all, just let yourself enjoy the movie.
Yeah, to call it one of the worst Marvel movies, no.
No.
You've seen Elektra, Daredevil, Hulk,
In the
Ang Lee.
MCU, even like the Incredible Hulk,
Incredible
and
Hulk
Thor
is worse.
2, and
Thor 2, yes.
and Captain
Iron
America,
Man
the
2.
First Avenger. All these movies have tons of problems. People like to love them though because they're.
Well, I
MCU
like
films.
Captain America: The First Avenger, but I will say it's worse than Spider-Man 3. That is true.
Yeah, it's not a very good movie. Yeah. So overall, I like the Raimi trilogy a lot. Great choice in choosing Raimi. Thank you. I'm so glad we have that because now I don't think we'll ever have a Spider-Man movie quite like those ever again.
I don't think they'll ever top them.
Sorry.
At least not the first two. Maybe the third, but not the first two.
So far, they haven't even topped.
They haven't even topped the third, I would argue, but that's getting ahead of ourselves, so...
Well,
Why don't we continue
This
real
podcast is
quick?
already getting extremely long.
So let's get for these next two really quick.
Let's talk about the web movies for like 2 minutes because
Okay.
is there a lot to say
Basically-
about these movies?
Basically, they were going to make Spider-Man 4. They were going to have it be the Lizard and Vulture. The Lizard
But
was
guess
going to be
what the
Dr.
studio
O'Connor's.
did again?
Fired Sam Raimi.
No, Raimi left
Well,
because the studio was like, no, you're going to do it our way.
yeah.
And this time, Raimi, after the experience of Spider-Man 3, was like, no, I am doing the Vulture. Ben Kingsley is playing the Vulture. Screw you. And the
That would have been great, by the
And
way.
the studio was like, no, you're going to do it our way, and we're going to do this story. And then Sam Raimi was like, okay, I'm leaving. And then instantly after he left, Sony was like, okay, we're scrapping Spider-Man 4, we're going to do this reboot. And they already had a
So,
script.
10 years after the first Raimi Spider-Man, we got The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, directed
Yep.
by Mark Webb, who I swear was only hired because his last name. No, I'm kidding, but
He's most well known for 500 Days of Summer. Fantastic indie comedy, really well made. So it's just part of that trend that's really trendy now of hiring an indie director to do a huge blockbuster and hoping it works out.
absolutely.
It didn't work out
It
here.
didn't work out.
I hear a lot of people like, oh, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is pretty good. It's just not great. And I'm like, no, it's not pretty good. It has like 20 million problems. It's a complete rehash of the first movie. You have to see the spider bite again.
You're talking about the first Amazing Spider-Man. You said Amazing Spider-Man 2.
No, I said it's a rehash of the first Spider-Man.
No, you said the Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a rehash of the first Spider-Man.
I don't think I said
Anyway,
that,
the Amazing Spider-Man, yeah, I agree. It's a rehash. Also, it's poorly paced. Like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Ben's stuff, it takes place at around the 50-minute mark versus like the 25-30-minute mark in the original movie. It takes forever to get to anything. And we have all the stuff with his parents, which I guess they were setting up far in advance. They were trying to make their own like Spider-Man universe.
I'm trying
like
to figure
the
out what
MC.
they were doing with the parents thing.
I think they were trying to make like a Spider-Man universe. Like Marvel
As we
universe.
get at the end of the second one. Where
Absolutely. 'Cause they were clearly trying to do Sinister Squad.
No. The Sinister Six is the
Or Sinister Six. Oops, not Sinister Squad. That's another movie, actually.
Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad. But Sinister Six. And yeah, I mean, there are parts in it I like. Let me get this out of the way. Andrew Garfield is a fantastic actor. He's great in Social Network, Hacksaw Ridge, and Silence.
Yeah.
He is not Peter Parker.
No,
at all.
He's more Spider-Man.
He is a great Spider-Man.
I wouldn't say great. He's a good Spider-Man.
Okay, fair enough. He's a terrible Peter Parker. He has good chemistry with Emma Stone, who is not a bad Gwen Stacy, actually. I like her as Gwen Stacy.
Oh, yeah.
But he himself, he's skater punk Peter Parker. He would have been a better Harry Osborn, honestly, I think.
The best part of this movie is the chemistry between Emma Stone and and James Garfield, the president, Andrew Garfield. No, I think they have really good chemistry, and it works. And I like when they're on screen together. So that is one of the part I really like about the movie. But I think for the casting, if we're going to talk about it, Emma Stone's the only one I really like. I think that I love Martin Sheen. I love Martin Sheen.
Oh, absolutely.
Big giant. Okay, no. Let me do this. My big giant qualifier. Martin Sheen is a fantastic actor. I love The West Wing. I've watched every episode of The West Wing twice. I love Apocalypse Now. He's not good in this movie.
No, he's not.
He seems like we need a guy who's like Cliff Robertson, who people will just like. Let's get Martin Sheen. But
let's get Sally Field to play Aunt May. That's another one from the 70s.
Sally Field is a great actress. You know, she's fantastic in Lincoln, but she just doesn't have the screen presence that Rosemary Harris did, and same with Martin Sheen. I love Martin Sheen, but it's just he doesn't feel quite right.
And I alluded to this earlier. The scene where he is basically with great power comes great responsibility scene. Mm-hmm. It comes after him coming in late and him being really mad, and he just angrily says, "You know, your father, he had one rule, and he said that even though he is smart." First thing comes first, it's his responsibilities. And they basically tried to write around that line from the first one without saying it.
Yeah.
And it feels more just like they're big and bombastic and it's an argument and oh gosh, isn't it so horrible that there was this horrible argument. Here's the thing, there's an argument in the Sam Raimi one. It feels more real though. Mm-hmm. That felt more like a real I know I'm not your father. Well, stop pretending to be. They tried to do the same thing here. It just didn't feel as real at all.
And it took a lot less time in the original to make it come like.
I don't feel like there's a bond between Martin Sheen and Peter.
Yeah, it doesn't really. You don't feel it. You know, it's really different. And it's the same thing with Sally Field. You know, she tries and they try. But,
she's not. Yeah, she tries, but
the heart isn't there. It's like they're acting. You know, and that's the problem. You know, it doesn't feel real. And it runs into that all the time. Really quick, because we gotta just swim through
the movie. I like the second half enough to give the movie a pass, but it's got a lot of problems.
It's just it's completely in the shadow.
It's perfectly okay, I guess.
Well, I think it's not because the villain is terrible. Lizard, boring.
I will say what I like about this movie, and the second movie as well, it has a lot of good visuals. I do like the idea of the point of view of Spider-Man going through the city, you know.
Which is enough to
give it, some great shots like that.
You know, a decent, like an okay, but
that's what I'm saying. It's okay.
But everything else I don't like, and I guess now here's the thing: I like Amazing Spider-Man 2 better than the first one.
Yeah, that's the one everyone seems to dog on more, and I don't get it.
First of all, I like Peter and Gwen Stacy better in this one.
Yeah.
I do. I like that. Their dynamic. I like how she reacts to him being Spider-Man and tries to do things to help him. Yeah. And the way they handle
And
her
it's
death.
and honestly, they do a decent job with their relationship. It's very awkward because her father died at the end of the first one, and her father said, "Promise me you will stop seeing Gwen because your enemies will try and go after the ones you love." Mm-hmm. And they do the same thing Raimi does. They're just taking ideas from Raimi's trilogy.
Yeah.
But that was one of the aspects I think they did all right.
Yeah, and I thought
it's not as good, but
at least some of
it's
the
all right.
action scenes are memorable, especially the Electro Times Square scene.
Oh, I love that scene. Yeah,
it's really cool.
The electricity is going across, and these people are about to touch the railings, but then Spider-Man webs their hands out of the way.
The Spidey sense. I love how they do it.
And there's a really sweet moment, and it honestly, much like the Stan Lee cameo in Spider-Man 3, it warmed my heart. Is when he defends the little kid who has the wind turbine. It's just a small moment, but this kid is about to get beat up. His wind turbine thing model that he made is destroyed. Spider-Man comes out of nowhere and he's like, the kids run away, and then he's like, "Wow, you made it! That's so cool!" And it felt like that's Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I was just like, "That's Peter Parker. That's Spider-Man right there."
Yeah,
that was perfect.
It has its moments, but
the Gwen Stacy death is sad. Harry Osborn sucks. God. Electro's good.
Dane DeHaan as
and
the Dane DeHaan as Harry Osborn playing Dane DeHaan.
Oh my god. Yeah, basically. Oh.
It just was not the right choice for Harry. And then Chris Cooper is Norman, and he's just confined to a bed.
It's so pathetic.
And that's
then obviously let's talk about the Rhino real quick. Paul Giamatti as the Rhino is just pathetic. He gets such a great, talented actor.
Give him 2 minutes of screen time. And it's like, what? No, first of all, Rhino's pretty cool.
I know that they were trying to set him up for a new movie, which will never be made now, but why do that?
I don't know.
It makes no sense.
Just over-cramming the movie.
But there are things in it I like. Again, the visuals. I like, the Spider-Man aspect of it, and there's more of it in this one.
Yeah.
And I like Electro as a villain, which is more than I can say about the Lizard.
I like his design, but I don't like the character. Excuse me, I don't like the character very much, because it's just like...
The character is too much like Jim Carrey in Batman Forever. He's too much of I'm obsessed with Spider-Man now.
It's weird. It's just weird. I don't know.
But anyway, those are the Garfield movies. I like the second one better than the first one. I think you agree.
Yeah. So let's get into Homecoming. And we actually don't have a lot of time to talk about this one either, but...
yeah, we've been talking forever.
Let's just jump into it. So I'll just sum up what I thought. I didn't love this movie. I think it had a lot of problems. Specifically... it didn't really know what it was wanted to be. It's trying to be a coming of age, inspired movie, but it just was a superhero movie too much to be that. And then, the superhero movie stuff was all bland, basic stuff we've seen a million times. So there was nothing to really get attached to besides Tom Holland, which helps the movie quite a bit. They have Tom Holland. Which actually, was the only reason I'm thinking about giving it a pass is just because how good he is. I really like Tom Holland. But when it comes to the rest of the film, everything that I kind of thought I might like was really underplayed and not even a part of the movie. And then everything I thought was just generic and boring was way too much in the movie. So that's my general thoughts of it. And we can go into more detail, but what did you think in general?
Okay, I think this movie is being a little overrated by some critics. At the same time, I will say I did like the movie. I did enjoy most of it. I love Tom Holland as Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I think he is the perfect meld of those two. He is horribly awkward and unable to, just total nerd. And he's got the quips of Spider-Man. And it fits very well. I feel like there are moments that feel a little bit safe, MCU safe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It has that tone. I think there are a couple weird choices they made, such as having Flash Thompson on. What is the nerd team there? It's not a debate team, it's like
a trivia team.
Okay.
I don't remember what they call it.
Why would Flash Thompson, who's supposed to be this jock?
I read about it. They said that they wanted to modernize him by taking away from that stereotypical
Screw
bully
you.
And be like modern bullies are, like internet bullies.
Oh my god.
That's what they said.
Alright, that's stupid.
It's very not comic-like. They really went away from
I'm going to give Amazing Spider-Man a compliment then for a second. At least Flash Thompson even has an arc in that movie. Even he has a character in that movie. And he's a bully at the beginning.
Yeah, like in the Raimi films, Flash Thompson is a stereotypical bully. and then goes away.
Yeah,
That's about
maybe Spider-Man actually. He's like almost buddy with Peter at the end. He's kind of like, yeah, you know. He's actually like when Uncle Ben gets killed, he's like, "I'm so sorry about your uncle." He actually goes to compliment.
I'll say Flash Thompson is done best
comforted.
in the Mark Webb films, which is one of the very few things that
I
they
know.
did better.
I gotta say, it feels like because that was supposed to be his character anyway in the comics.
Yeah.
But anyway, it felt wrong. And yes, they do have the moment when he's calling Peter Parker Penis Parker, which is funny. And that did feel like a bullying moment. But I don't know, I guess. I feel like they went a little too far with modernizing it. Also, like, you know, and I don't mind. Also, I want to point out, because a lot of people have a problem with Zendaya as Mary Jane. She's not Mary Jane, guys. And I think a lot of people are realizing that now, but that was a lot of the controversy going into this movie, quote unquote.
She's MJ.
She's MJ. She's Melissa Johnson. Or Michelle
She's their
Johnson.
version of Mary Jane.
Yeah.
So.
Now, I will say, Mary Jane, yeah, that would be weird. I don't hate the idea of casting her, but at the same time, I am kind of like, well,
Wait, what?
Wasn't Mary Jane a complete...
I didn't know that this was a problem.
Like, I guess I don't like how they wrote her character in it. She doesn't really have much of a character.
That's what I don't like.
Yeah.
Every scene she's in, I really like her.
She's a freaking SJW, I'm just going to say it.
I love her in this movie. I actually think that the scene she has, she's funny, and I like her attitude. She's a completely different version of MJ, which is great. And I don't know why we don't have more time with her. I actually really like that scene when she's like, "What are you up to, Peter?"
Yeah, that's funny. That's
kidding,
good.
I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, and I like that. And I like that she's kind of just that...
She's a lot like Ali Sheedy in The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
That kind of shy, quiet girl. Which...
Yeah, I like her in the movie.
I will say, when they're saying, this movie's supposed to be like John Hughes, that's the one thing that reminds me of John Hughes movies is her character.
So, I'm just wondering, do you have a problem with that? Because
No, the way part of her
underused.
character was written... It's a little bit like, okay, now we're forcing in SJW-isms, very millennial nowadays stuff, and I kind of rolled my eyes at that.
I don't know. She seems like the type of person that would actually... It's kind of funny to me that she cares. Like, no, that building was built by slaves. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of funny. And she's thinking that she actually cares about that. I thought that was funny. I don't know. I liked it. I liked her character. For the 3 minutes she's on screen.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait till the next movie to really talk about her character, because you're right, we don't have a lot.
Yeah, instead we get...
But I will say that's a bad
lady.
impression.
Instead we get Red Herring Lady.
Yeah, Liz, who is not in any comic iteration I've ever heard of.
We're going to develop this relationship for a plot device, because... spoilers and... Ooh, shocker. This is the big spoiler of the movie, which is not even that big.
To be fair, I didn't think about it.
It's
So I'll admit
her
that.
father. Yeah, because it doesn't matter. Who gives a shit who her father is? You know?
Her father is Michael Keaton.
Her father's Michael Keaton.
By the way, I like Michael Keaton in this movie. And I kind of like the villain, the way it's written.
No.
Hold on, let me talk now.
Okay.
Because unlike being... Yeah, while he doesn't have a lot of development in the sense of a tragic backstory of why he's the Vulture, like the Raimi movies did, at least he's not a power-hungry maniac who's out for revenge. He's just like, well, I got screwed over by the system, so screw it. I'm going to rob now. We're going to rob people.
I thought he wasn't a very good villain, and that's not the reason. If they were going to go that way, then give him a little bit more character. I don't have an idea of what type of character he is. By the end of the movie, he just seems like a guy who wants money. Okay, but if you're going to spend so much screen time developing this guy and his stupid little company he builds, I don't get an idea of his family. What is he trying to protect? Why does he need the money? Why can't he be a legitimate businessman? Because he's justifying that as his reason for committing crime. Okay, why did you need to start committing crime? You don't seem like you're in that much dire straits. You live in a really nice house. This is never established.
That was 8 years later. I got the impression that was from his crimes. He was able to get all that money and buy a nice house.
We don't ever understand what his financial difficulties were to begin with.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a problem.
So why can't he be a legitimate businessman? I don't understand that. He seems like a pretty smart guy. Why couldn't he just work for a company? So that's the thing. It's like there's no motivation that we understand. And, you know, he's just a criminal because he wants money. So sure, you're right. It's not like a power-hungry thing or anything like that. But it's a boring motivation that we don't care about. And that's the thing. We have no sympathy for him. Do you ever have sympathy for him?
I suppose not really. That's
No.
true.
He's just this bad guy. Bad guy number 3. I'll just call him that because that's just what he feels like. You know? It's just like, oh yeah, he's a bad guy. And then, oh, we're going to put Shocker in it. And he's just going to be another bad guy.
Yeah.
And then he's going to die. And then someone else is going to become Shocker.
Well, he doesn't die.
Yeah, he does. He gets vaporized by his...
Oh, Shocker. Sorry.
What he thought
Yes. You're
was
right.
the gravity gun.
That was funny.
Yeah, it was. But then we get another Shocker. Oh, by the way, we get Donald Glover in this movie for 2 minutes. Just to throw in a reference to Miles Morales, which is like the laziest thing I've ever seen.
That
it's
was
like,
weird.
Why? Like, I understand Miles Morales, you want to make him a character, sure. But we don't need it in this movie. It has nothing to do with the movie. So why it was thrown in here? You know?
Yeah, he didn't even stand out. Here are some things I liked. I liked, and this is something they actively did. They wanted to do stuff we hadn't seen before. So Spider-Man should be in places we hadn't really seen. So let's take him out of the Manhattan skyscrapers. I like when he is like running through the suburbs and he can't swing along the houses, so he has to literally run.
I like when he gets to like the golf course and he's like, oh darn it, and he's just bolting.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, that's funny. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, there are little things like that. And like I mentioned, they do the, like he's trying, a ship has been destroyed, so he's trying to pull it together with his webs, kind of like the stopping the train in Spider-Man 2. It doesn't quite have that same effect dramatically, but it's still a nice scene. It looks really nice. And I like the stuff with Tony Stark, honestly, like the dynamic where Tony basically is like, I'm taking the suit I gave you back because if the suit is the only thing that makes you Spider-Man, then you don't deserve the suit. And I like that message.
See, I disagree with that because I feel like Tony was supposed to be like the surrogate father character in this movie, but he's barely in the movie. They advertise Tony and Spider-Man fighting together. It's in the trailer. It's on the poster. That never happens. It's a lie. They're just lying marketing, and I hate when marketing lies. It's like, if you want to advertise something, be honest. Spider-Man and Iron Man don't fight together in this movie. They help put a boat back together. That's what happens. They never fly through the city like it shows. And the other thing is, yeah, Iron Man is barely in here. That's the other thing. They have a few scenes together, but Happy Hogan is in this movie more than Iron Man is. Just think about that for a second. Happy Hogan is in this movie more than Iron Man. It's true. So that's just the thing that's funny to me. I wish they gave more to like screen time to their dynamic, especially if they're going to be together in the Avengers movies to begin.
It should have, yeah, you're right, because even Civil War established, because this is where they first introduced Tom Holland.
They have about
Spider-Man.
the same screen time in Civil War than they do in this one.
Yeah, you're not wrong, and it's a shame that they did that.
That's what they missed out on.
Yeah,
because there's no real reason.
And
for
I will
Iron Man to
say,
be in
this
movie.
doesn't, like I said, this doesn't feel like a John Hughes movie. It doesn't, like, there's no lesson learned. There's no, like, learn, like, we're all just stupid.
Well, they tried
teenagers
to, because at the end they're like, see,
they tried.
The suit doesn't make me, I make me, blah, 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 or something like
It's
that.
nothing compared to, that nerd over there? He's just like you. He's just into different things. He's just in a different social circle, but he's just another teen like
that
you.
That didn't ring through this movie,
Absolutely not.
Like me and you.
Or even a Ferris Bueller kind of lesson where life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you may miss it.
Yeah, I didn't really learn anything from this movie. I really didn't go out of this movie and say, oh yeah, that's a good lesson. I didn't feel
like,
that.
if you want a recent John Hughes, I'm not going to say knock off because I love this movie.
I was going to bring up The Edge of 17 being an example of a movie that does it well. But whereas, with this film, and I see this with other these comic book movies, like about these younger people, like Amazing Spider-Man did, where they're just trying to be like, oh look, see, very simplistic plot and message. But that's the sad thing about this one, because they marketed like this is going to be like a coming of age movie.
It's not a coming of age movie.
It doesn't feel like one. It feels like a superhero movie.
Just because you have a kid in high school doesn't mean it's a coming of age movie, guys.
Exactly. It doesn't at all. And that's what's so annoying, because I wanted to see that. But
by that logic, then Halloween is a coming of age movie because they're all in high school.
I know. Like, I told one of my friends this. I'm like, when I hear this is a coming of age movie, I wanted this to be like Perks of Being a Wallflower, except he's Spider-Man. This was a Spider-Man movie with little tiny elements of coming of age thrown in there. Yeah. I didn't want that. I want like a drama. I told him I would have been fine without any action. Now, this would have killed the hopes and dreams of all comic book fans. So, obviously, I'm not like your typical comic book fan who loves action.
I definitely wouldn't go that far because I did want to see some Spider-Man action. But I do agree.
I think the movie would have been better without any action if it was just a character piece.
You're asking for a completely different genre of film then.
Correct.
Okay.
Which is how they stand apart from the Raimi films. How else do you stand apart that well?
Sure.
You can't. Because we've seen this story before. So they try. Okay, and here's their solution.
I guess.
You know what?
I guess at that point, I would say to you though. So you're saying comic book movie? Don't be a comic book movie. Be a regular coming-of-age movie.
You want to make a character. You want to make a movie about Spider-Man? Make it something different. Change the genre.
That's fine.
That's been done before.
Yeah.
By the way, it's been done a lot. Series change genres sometimes, and it works really well. James Cameron's Aliens is a great example.
Yeah, but James Cameron's Aliens doesn't forget to have some horror elements with facehuggers and
which
stuff.
Is fine. You could have some comic book elements, but don't make the movie a comic book movie. Make it a coming of age movie.
That's fine.
I'm just saying I would have preferred the extreme of having no action in it than what we got. Does that make sense?
It does. I feel like you're asking for something that you should have known was never going to happen, though.
Of course.
Okay.
I know most people aren't like me. I accept this. Most people love Captain America, Winter Soldier. I think it's the greatest superhero movie of all time. I disagree.
I don't want to open that can of worms right now, but I like Winter Soldier a lot.
I love Iron Man 3. Most people don't.
Fair enough.
Obviously I'm a very different viewer than most people.
Fair enough.
But I'm okay with that.
Definitely has very little action in the suit. So that's true.
But I'm absolutely okay with it.
Yeah. I like some of the other ideas though. I like the idea of the spider suit that can do all these different
Yeah, I like
things.
Karen.
Yeah, basically Jarvis for
Well, even better because she makes sarcastic quips about him kissing, kissing the girl.
Yeah.
And, now's your chance, Peter. I love that. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, it was funny.
And they have some great chemistry together. Yeah,
I will say another thing. There's not much of a relationship between him and Aunt May in this movie,
yeah,
and that bothered me too.
Thank you for bringing that up because that's a great example. Aunt May, like we said before, is supposed to be Peter's emotional core, the person who leads him through thick and thin, and is his moral compass, right? She's barely in this movie. When she's used for comedy. And then there's one sequence where I'm like, oh, here we go. This is going to be the nice bonding scene when she's getting him ready for homecoming. Right. It's a montage with no dialogue.
It's a montage, of course.
They cut past all the sweet moments where she's helping him put on the tie and showing him how to dance. I'm like, why are you shortening these scenes? These look really cute.
Because kids nowadays don't care about drama and characters, Shane.
They just want to see a bunch of action and fighting. And then, of course, and the homecoming thing. Let's get to that.
Oh, the homecoming thing where it's like they wanted to be a John Hughes movie, like 16 Candles, but
by the way,
really screwed it up.
Peter Parker ditches his date, completely leaves her to go fight the villain. And the actual homecoming party is probably on screen for 15 seconds.
There is literally no reason in the movie for this. It's not like there's a threat, if you don't stop him now, he's going to kill 1 million people.
No.
Or something like that.
No.
There's no reason. He's just a stupid teenager, I guess.
And ditching her there, which is wait, what? This should be much more dramatic. I should care about her. Why don't I care about her? This movie should have made me care. It's when in good coming of age films, when there's a romance something going on, you really care about both of them, You want to see them together. This movie didn't make me feel that.
By the way, I just thought about something too. How did no one, there's a scene where they go to Washington, D.C. to compete in this thing. And then later on they go, like we mentioned, into the Pentagon. And they're in an escalator and the thing is about to drop.
Wait, slow down.
They're in an elevator.
Where are they?
They're in an elevator in the Pentagon.
No.
Or not the Pentagon, the freaking, just tell me the damn name. Because
I'm enjoying this. Let's drag this out a little bit longer.
Dude, just let me get to the point that I'm going to talk about.
It's the Washington Monument.
Okay, the Washington Monument. I've never been there.
Why you thought it was the Pentagon.
Okay, I don't know. I don't remember.
You know what the Pentagon is, right?
Yes, I know what the Pentagon is.
Okay.
It's a giant thing that looks like a penis. Yeah, I went there.
Pentagon?
The Pentagon, yes. The giant tower.
No.
Yes.
The Pentagon is not a giant tower.
Okay. So they go into the Washington Monument, and something happens. Basically, this elevator is going to fall. Mm-hmm. And so Peter gets in his spider suit, goes in and saves him. My question, Why did no one think in their head after that situation, hey, it's circumvenient Spider-Man, who's known for being in New York, was in Washington, D.C. when we were. Hey, that's really weird. Hey, Peter, where were you? Because you know what? In Superman 2, that's what gives away to Lois Lane that Clark Kent is Superman. Which admittedly you can argue, shouldn't they should have figured it out sooner, but who cares right now?
Well,
Come on, people. How
are
dumb are these freaking kids?
Pretty dumb.
I mean, I guess they are modern kids, but holy smokes, they're stupid.
Well, Michael Keaton figures it out pretty easily in like 10 seconds. So I don't
Again,
know why.
millennials.
Yep, it's true.
Millennials are dumb.
Yeah,
So-
but, you know, I think Michael Keaton might be that people like Michael Keaton, so they just like the character he plays.
I guess I can see what you're thinking about
People
that.
do that, but it's
I
like,
guess I don't find a lot of attachment like I do the Sam Raimi villains, but at least I can be like, you know what? His
not the
character's
worst
all
villain.
right. I certainly won't remember.
but he's
it.
boring because he's just a guy in a suit,
Yeah.
just like a lot of villains are.
Yeah, let's see. I like some of the inserts, though, of the 60s Spider-Man cartoon theme. I actually like how they do that during the
I
Marvel
thought that was
Flipbook.
distracting. It was
Really?
like, oh, they're just putting it in there because nobody else has done it yet. So they're like, okay, we're just going to throw it in there really
Oh,
randomly.
it was kind of fun. It was charming. I liked it.
I just didn't get it that much. I mean, because it is used in the Raimi films.
It is, and it's used in the Garfield films. That's Andrew Garfield's
Yeah, which
ringtone.
that's a good way to do it. You know, it's
Yeah.
just thrown in there. But
Which,
this
by the
one's,
way,
like,
they
really
stole from
distracting.
Iron Man, because Iron Man did that too.
Did Iron Man have a classic theme?
They had the cartoon theme, which is Rhodey's cell phone number in the first Iron Man. Or his ringtone in the first Iron Man.
Oh, I haven't never
Yeah,
seen the Iron Man cartoon, so I didn't
I've never
know.
seen the cartoon, but I know I've seen the theme intro. But anyway, yeah. So, yeah, I like this movie fine. It's not my favorite MCU movie, but I thought it was good. It's got a lot of problems though, and I do.
Yeah,
agree.
I just thought it was boring.
but they aren't
for a lot
so
of it.
distracting.
Yeah, I just was kind of bored for a lot of it. You know, just it didn't do anything really new or original, and that's what I want to see, something new and original. If you're gonna reboot Spider-Man twice in 20 years, the second reboot better be something we haven't seen before. Better be something completely different.
They did have stuff we hadn't seen before, but the problem is they didn't have a story we hadn't seen before.
That's what I'm saying.
And that was the problem.
The story is the most important part for me. You know, Tom Holland is a fantastically talented actor. You know, like I love him in The Impossible. I loved him in The Lost City of Z, which just came out this year, and he's a really talented kid. But
And he's talented in this movie.
he can't carry the movie on his own.
No.
And that's the problem. He doesn't. And John Watts, I don't know. I don't feel like he's a very inspired filmmaker to me. He's just kind of
He's
just
kind of
another
a guy
MCU
who got lucky, honestly.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of like, oh, this is a directorial choice I like. You know, where in the Raimi films you can really see Sam Raimi coming through.
Yeah.
I don't really see a distinct style of John Watts.
It felt like Ant-Man, like, you know, Doctor Strange. These safe. We need to play it safe for the audiences because we don't want to offend them with different things or ideas. We don't want to piss off any of the comic book fans. You know, I'm just gonna say it. As a comic book movie fan myself, this is the fault of people complaining about Iron Man 3, complaining about all these different movies that dare to step out of the box.
Well, I'll give you credit, Sean, because I listen to comic book fans on like podcasts and stuff, and they're like last year thinking Doctor Strange should be in the top 5 films of the year.
No.
You never said that.
No.
You know,
No, I did say Civil War. But I think I defended that opinion pretty well.
Yeah, but Doctor Strange.
No!
like, why?
God.
You know, in this movie, I'm going to start hearing Spider-Man Homecoming should be in the top 10 of the year.
Over Logan? If any comic book movie, there's two. Logan and Wonder Woman, I could kind of see.
Wonder Woman,
But-
definitely. Over Wonder Woman, no way. Logan, you can make a case. I've
I've made the case for Logan. I love
No,
Logan.
I mean, you can make a case that Spider-Man Homecoming is better than Logan. I could see that. Not better than Wonder Woman, though. My God, you'd have to be crazy to claim that. Insane. If I want to see the person who says, oh yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming is better than Wonder Woman, so I can just knock them down.
They're a Marvel fanboy at that point. I would honestly call them that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Wonder Woman, I've never been so sure in my life of saying that it's the best comic book movie of the year so far. You know, we've
And by the way,
had
now,
so many.
now that I said that, they're going to think, oh, I'm a DC fanboy. No. I like Marvel more than DC. But here's the thing. I like good movies. So make good comic book
Like
movies.
Marvel more than DC. You really are saying that. That's interesting.
Marvel Cinematic Universe over the DC Cinematic Universe, I'm saying.
Oh, MCU over DC. That's...
Sorry.
Nobody would claim the opposite, so...
There are people that do.
I thought you were just saying Marvel in
There are
general.
people that do, though. And it's DC fanboys who are utterly...
Which film is better than...
Oh, people that say Man of Steel is better than, like...
Okay, well...
You know,
those people...
Those people are the epitome of insane fanboys. We should do a whole podcast on fanboys.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. But overall, we could talk about these forever. We actually have been. But, yeah, you know what I mean?
We've talked about it as long as Amazing Spider-Man 2 at this point.
Yeah, there's so much to say about these movies. That's why we're trying to get through them. But when it comes to Homecoming, to sum up my thoughts, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I love Spider-Man. There were parts of the movie I really liked. But I have to be honest about how I felt about the movie. And just, I'm honest that I don't like most comic book movies. It's just, that's the truth. I'll, kind of get into them as I'm watching them. But then after I leave the theater, I'm like... I'm not going to really remember that very much. And that's what happened to Spider-Man Homecoming. I enjoy parts of it, but actually specifically the action scenes, I was really bored during all of them. So boring. The Vulture plane fight. I was falling asleep. I was like, oh my god. I know what's going to happen because we've seen this 20,000 times before.
They just don't have any director who can do anything interesting with action. And there are directors out there who can. The problem is Marvel isn't hiring them. And when they do, they say, no, do it like these other movies.
Yeah, like they got Shane Black for Iron Man 3. Oh, this auteur director who has his very own distinct style. Wait, you want to make a woman the villain? No! You have to make it a man because we need to sell more toys. Which is the biggest problem with Iron Man 3.
I think the one that pisses me off even more is Edgar Wright is going to direct Ant-Man. Oh, wait, has a different vision. We're going to fire him and get the guy who directed Yes Man, which is probably the most ironic thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's true. Peyton Reed. Mr. Yes Man, yes. Yeah, and they do this a lot. And that's what scared me when just so happens with Disney, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller left the Han Solo movie over creative differences. And I'm like, all right, which yes man are they going to get? And one of the names they threw out right away was Joe Johnston. And I'm like, oh no. No, please, do not give me that.
I can give Joe Johnston a couple movies. There are a few movies he's made that I like. But the thing is, they're pretty safe movies.
Jurassic Park 3 was the ultimate.
Well, the one I'm talking about is Jumanji and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I've not seen The Rocketeer, which I'm embarrassed to say. I should watch The Rocketeer.
Well, okay.
But anyway.
What I'm saying is, when I watch Jurassic Park 3, and when I watch his stupid MCU film, I know you love... Okay, you're going to argue with me.
I'll leave it alone for now, because we'll do the Captain America
Civil War, the First Avenger.
The First Avenger.
It's such a yes man movie. It's so safe. It's the most safe movie I've ever seen. And I knew that he was going to do that with Star Wars. So I completely agree with you, though. I think we need to hire more specialized directors, people who have styles.
And then what they do, just let them do what they want to do.
Exactly.
You can mandate little things. Like say, hey, we got to connect, so at least just do this little thing, make sure it connects. And then leave them alone. Let them do it.
The funny thing is that Disney gets a lot of credit, but there's been a lot of falling out recently. Starting, the first example I think of is Age of Ultron, when they had a huge fight with Joss Whedon over the farm scene. They didn't get it. They wanted it out of the movie.
The farm scene is great.
It's fantastic.
It gives Hawkeye a character besides I can shoot a bow and arrow real good.
It's just funny how many examples there are of this. Like I said, Iron Man 3. Rebecca Hall was supposed to be the main villain. Oh, no, she's a woman. Can't have that. Okay, we'll make it Guy Pearce.
Which is odd. That doesn't even make sense.
Well, because boys don't want to buy toys of female villains.
Yeah, said Black Widow fans.
It doesn't make any sense to me, okay? I don't know. And then, and like we said, just with the Han Solo movie, and then, of course, on the DC side with Wonder Woman, the biggest thing going around about Wonder Woman behind the scenes was the studio did not want the No Man's Land scene in there. They're like, No Man's Land, this doesn't make any sense. How does this connect to the story? And then Patty Jenkins, thank God, she's someone to stand up for what she believes in, is like, no, this is everything about the movie. This is who Wonder Woman is. We need to show that. And it's the best scene in the movie, by far. So,
it is. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's a running theme that we just identified. Every time the studio intervenes in a movie, it usually ends up worse.
Yeah, and I'm not saying those movies are necessarily all bad, but they're not as good as they could have been.
Yeah, they're
I feel
not.
like Ant-Man could have been great had Edgar Wright done it.
Yeah.
We could have had an amazing movie called Ant-Man.
Yeah, it's
but instead we
possible.
got a perfectly mediocre, fine,
And
serviceable movie.
with Fantastic, with Josh Trank, he pitched The Fly-esque, really strange superhero
Which
movie.
is weird.
Would it have been a great movie?
But who
I don't
knows?
know. But we know it would have been better than what we got.
Oh, dear God, yes. And now everyone blames him for that.
Well, I mean,
Was
there's a lot of blame to go around, but the original person at fault was the studio for just not letting him do what the heck he wanted. That's what they should have done. But overall, yeah, okay, getting back to Spider-Man.
We've gone way off track.
Yeah, we'll round it up. We both really like Spider-Man. I think we agree. The Raimi trilogy is great. Keep going back, watching those.
The Raimi trilogy is the best we've gotten so far. Then I'd put Spider-Man Homecoming under that. Then Amazing Spider-Man 2, then the first one.
Oh, yeah, I should rank them all. I'm guessing you'd say Spider-Man 2,
Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man, then Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, and then...
That's how I'd rank them. Then Homecoming. Then Amazing Spider-Man 2. Then The Amazing Spider-Man.
Okay.
The first one.
That is exactly my rankings.
Different ratings, I'm sure. But same rankings.
Different ratings, same rankings, yes. In terms of ratings, I'd give Spider-Man, I'd give it a solid 4.5.
Okay.
Out of 5.
I go 5.
Spider-Man 2, 5.
5.
Spider-Man 3 gets a 4.
I agree. I give it a 4.
Homecoming, I'll go chronological here. The Amazing Spider-Man, probably a 2. I just really don't remember that movie very much.
It's probably a 3, but maybe I'm being a little too generous, so probably 2.5. It's around there.
Then Amazing Spider-Man gets a 2.5.
Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Amazing Spider-Man 2 gets a 2.5.
I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 gets 3, so I'll say Amazing Spider-Man is 2.5.
Okay. And then Homecoming, for me, it's really close between 2.5 and 3.
I think it's 3.5 for me. I think it's a good-ish movie. It's on the par with Ant-Man, and that's why I put Ant-Man.
Okay. But yeah, there's our thoughts on Spider-Man. Not exhaustive at all, right? We just have a lot to say.
Hopefully that didn't bore you.
Yeah, but thank you guys so much for listening. Not all of them are going to be this long, so don't worry.
No, don't worry. We're just huge nerds, and we're fans of Spider-Man.
We're fans of Spider-Man. This is a big episode for us.
Our next one shouldn't be as long.
No.
Do we want to reveal what that is? Or
yeah, we might as well give a teaser because I'll probably get that up right around the same
time.
Take
a wild guess that we might be doing Planet of the Apes. And we are.
So
but we're not doing all the movies.
No, God, no. We're doing the original and the new 3. That's it.
We are not going to mention the sequels or the Tim Burton
not even going to talk about
pile of crap remake.
No.
I'll say it's a pile of crap.
We're only going to be focusing on those 4. And
the best ones, honestly.
I think it's a lot more. And then after that, you can plan on us doing something Dunkirk related. So just so you know, that's kind of our plan.
Not necessarily knowing, but that's all we'll say.
We'll see. Yeah. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. As always, like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening to this on the podcast app, when I get that up finally, I'm still trying to figure that out, but once it's up, thank you guys for listening. And we will catch you guys in the next video/podcast.
All right. See you guys then.
Yeah, thanks so much.